this year as well, except for Cyberpunk, obviously, that has not been released yet. But we're basically going to be talking about all these games. We have 32 options within the debate. Please excuse the chart. It was kind of hard to figure out how to get this chart onto the program, so I have a whole setup with it. I'm basically Skyping into a computer screen, but I'll go ahead and guide you through it. These games are a variety of PlayStation exclusives, Xbox exclusives, and everything in between. Again, this is strictly PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. We are all different. We all have different opinions on video games. This is our opinion on some of the best video games in the past 10 years. And this overall video will be our general opinion and our thoughts personally on what we think would be the best game of the decade. Mind you, a lot of these games, some of us haven't played, some of us have played more than others, some of us have tried, whatever the case may be, and we're going to work around those issues to try to debate and really get to the core of what makes a great video game and to decide all together collaboratively what is going to be the best game of the decade. So, out of the 32 options, we have our first portion, which is The Last of Us Part 1 versus The Last of Us Part 2. Now, you're going to see a common theme throughout this whole chart, and that is I tried my best to actually pair up video games that are similar to each other or are direct sequels so that we can really get down to whether graphics and newer mechanics and newer improvements in technology really makes a better video game, or if older video games that have better story or better driven narratives and gameplay design and mechanics will beat the newer video games. So you'll see the first one's Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2. We're going to have Assassin's Creed Origins versus Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Metal Gear Solid 5 versus Death Stranding, Witcher 3 versus Jedi Fallen Order, Red Dead Redemption 1 versus Red Dead Redemption 2, Titanfall 2 versus Mass Effect 2. We're also going to have Dark Souls 3 versus Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, Dead Space 2 versus Resident Evil 2 Remake, Horizon Zero Dawn versus God of War, Doom Eternal versus Doom 2016, Far Cry 3 versus Fallout New Vegas, Skyrim versus GTA 5, Spider-Man PS4 versus Batman Arkham Knight, Shadow of the Colossus versus Ghost of Tsushima, Halo 2 Anniversary Edition versus Gears of War 3, and Bloodborne, this is the only one that was not matching, Bloodborne versus Uncharted 4. All right, God. So obviously that last one doesn't match, but it's only because this chart limits to 32. And originally we were only going to have 15, but I wanted to fit in all the best games of the decade and just come out with an outcome. So, with that being said, boys, get together, get your whiskey glasses, get your water bottles, whatever it is you got to do. Get your weapons ready, prepare, and let's go ahead and get started. Anyone who's watching, please go ahead and... Emily says there's no audio. You guys hear me, right? I hear the...
Yeah, I came back.
Okay, perfect. So, anybody who's watching, please ask any questions. Bring out your opinions. If you don't agree with something, write it in the chat. Let's bring it up. Let's talk about it. And if you think there's anything missing, which there is, I think Untitled Goose Game definitely is an honorable mention in this. And we'll definitely go through the ones that we think are honorable mentions. But these are our personal opinions on the best games of the decade. So, boys, let's do this. And I'm going to start off with getting a glass of whiskey while we discuss. But The Last of Us Part 1 versus The Last of Us Part 2. Now, just fair warning, Ralph has not played The Last of Us Part 2. So we have to be very mindful of spoilers. But let's go ahead and discuss what we think should move on and who should be the winner between these two games. So whoever wants to go first while I serve my Texas rye. Because, Joel is from Texas.
What's left of it?
Yeah, what's left of it.
Damn.
Who wants to start?
For me personally, I think the better story in one outweighs the better gameplay in 2, just because they're both the same kind of game, like the same narrative-driven game. It's not a gameplay-driven game, and the story is stronger in 1. So for me, it's a clear winner.
Okay, so Josh goes for The Last of Us Part 1. What about you, John?
I agree 100%. Definitely Last of Us 1. I was left wanting more of Last of Us 1, and Last of Us 2 completely railed me. And Last of Us, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I got an idea.
Won't say
I got
why.
an idea. Let's do this for the future as we're talking about these games. Obviously, Ralph hasn't played Last of Us Part 2, and there's going to be a few games like, for example, Dark Souls 3. I have not played. John has not played. But Josh and Ralph, both of you have played, right?
No, just me.
All right. So just Josh. So what we'll do is that in the games that people have played, we'll have them voice their opinions. And then the people who haven't played have the option of being able to ask questions that can allow them to either sway versus one or the other. Does that sound fair enough? Okay, so we'll work through that. We'll work through this as our first time, but
I really don't care about spoilers for Last of Us 2. Like, I really don't care. So you can talk about it to your heart's content, and I won't be.
I don't know, man.
Awesome.
Look,
So-
we'll save you spoilers because it's okay. I totally agree. Last of Us Part 1, I think, is overall a better game. Last of Us Part 2 is it is one of the best mechanically driven games. It is one of the best level design games. It is one of the best looking games ever. It is amazing. It is a masterpiece in its own right. But that being said, The Last of Us Part 1 executed much better in the combination of gameplay, storytelling, and overall playability. I can go back to Last of Us Part 1, as heart-wrenching as it is, and play it over and over and over again and not have an issue. Versus Last of Us Part 2, there's a certain portion of the game that once I get to there, I don't want to play no more. And I think that's general consensus amongst most Last of Us Part 2 players. So, with that being said, Ralph...
Emily says she likes Last of Us Part 2 more than 1.
Oh, let me see the chat.
I'm sorry she feels that way.
I'm going out on a limb here and say straight up that I like The Last of Us Part 2 better than Part 1. I can everything that I just said, right? It's the game is phenomenal, and it's phenomenal in everything it does. It's just personally for me, I just like the first one more, just because it's not, the gameplay is really fun and the story is what drives it. I love those characters. It's simpler, and while The Last of Us Part 2 takes a lot of risk, for me personally, it just doesn't hit home as much as the first one does.
What are some of those failed risks?
Oh my god, you really want to know?
You said that? Are you asking or somebody on the chat? So without spoiling anything, one of the failed risks is the change of perspective. This game goes from a story about Ellie and Joel and these two core characters with supporting characters all around, and there's a specific story of Ellie is the cure. They need to get to the hospital in order to find the cure, and then Joel ends up, saving her life because he ends up loving her like a daughter, right? But the book is left open on the cure of her and his lie to her and all that stuff. Most of that is kind of thrown out the window. It is there in the game, and it is a big part of their relationship, and it is a big part of her journey, but they kind of sway away completely from that to give you a different perspective of a whole other portion of the game of characters and supporting characters and all this stuff. And
that suck.
Yeah, well, it's not for everyone, and the pacing is bad.
They're like all cardboard characters, man.
Yeah.
It was a big change of pace, and especially gaming wise, it goes basically. You go halfway up the game in intensity. It gets better. It gets better. It gets more intense. It gets more dark, and then it takes this ultimate halt, and then you got to basically start all over again in a whole different perspective. So that's where for me it just didn't work.
I think with Last of Us, I think it would have been a lot cooler if the events of Last of Us 2 would have ended in Last of Us 1, and then Last of Us 2 was a completely different game. Like, it would have been cool if we would have started off with just Ellie going for this revenge story, not have that Abby scene, and it gone a completely different path.
Wow.
Why? Yeah, that's not spoiling much, but I mean, like,
I don't care.
you know. But, you know, I think, so one of the comments says, like, overall, I felt like the story was more engaging and interesting. I liked the setting, the different mechanics. I found it more fun. I agree that it was more fun, but the argument is which is the better game overall. And I think Last of Us, the first one, is definitely story is a lot better than
I just think the
second
first one has a better balance. I just think it's not only listen, is The Last of Us Part 1 a world-changing story that we've never seen or heard of before? No. It's a story about basically a father figure and a daughter figure, and their journey through a zombie apocalypse, and she has the cure. We've seen that a million times in different mediums, but the way that they presented in the first one is simple. It's simplified enough and complicated enough that it's engaging and it's fun and it's very emotional. You get emotionally attached to these characters, but it's also the gameplay was fun. The level design of the time was amazing. It's way ahead of its time. It still looks amazing if you play it now. Versus The Last of Us Part 2, that, yes, it took a lot of risk. Yes, the gameplay mechanics are much better and smoother, and it's a lot funner to fight and to weave around, and all that stuff is great. It's just, for me, again, the opinion-based, the balance between the story and the gameplay paired up with its memorability, I think the first one it beats out the second one, for me personally. So, are we all in agreement that this moves on? Got you. That being said, Emily, like being forced to confront a person specifically because it forced me to question why. Again, I completely agree with the sense of, again, the game is a masterpiece in its own right, in a lot of ways, and I do like what they wanted to do with the story. I just didn't like the way it was done personally. But again, the Last of Us Part 1, I don't really have any complaints about anything within the story. I don't even have any complaints about the gameplay. So, all right. So now, next part is Assassin's Creed Origins versus Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Assassin's Creed Origins.
Okay, so Ralph is for Origins.
Yeah. The reason I want to say Origins is because, if I'm not mistaken, it's the same team, right? Is it the same team?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So Assassin's Creed Origins, for me, the setting is really important, because it's set in a very interesting time in the Ptolemaic dynasty, which is not something that a lot of people know about historically. So it brought attention to a time period in history that people don't really pay attention to. And at the same time, it addresses themes that are relevant today. Like,
I don't mean to interrupt, but whoever has the YouTube video like on the side, just mute it so it's not reverbing. But go ahead.
Yeah, so in Assassin's Creed Origins, there are themes about racism and kind of segregation. And that's relevant today as it is back then, because the Ptolemies were Greeks. They weren't Egyptians, but they were the ruling dynasty. And they subjugated the indigenous Egyptians, who were African, right? So I just think it really kind of draws parallels between our world and antiquity really well. And also, I mean, the universe is just breathtaking. And the scenery, like, you can just kind of wander in it and get lost in it for hours and hours on end. And it's even been used for university courses to teach about Ptolemaic Egypt. So,
Yep.
I'm gonna have to agree. Origins for me is definitely for me personally, I think it's an overall better game, just because not only did it be the first one in the lineup of Assassin's Creed games to really embrace that super open world RPG aspect of it, but it also succeeded in doing so. And it's a beautiful game. The mechanics are great, and I like that the story actually has to do with him becoming an assassin. that Black Flag really didn't do. So
Yeah.
that's my personal opinion. But I think I had more fun in Origins, and it was more memorable for me. And I like Bayek more than I did for Edward.
Yeah, Edward is just always like, I'm just trying to get money and get liquor. You know what I'm saying? Trying to get that rum.
I think everyone could agree with that, though.
Yeah, and eventually he comes to his character development is like, all right, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe there's more to life than bitches, and that's about it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
John, you never got to play Origins, right?
I played it, but I didn't finish it. I think that the fighting dynamics kind of threw me off a little bit, but I will agree that it was a very amazing setting, great. Adri's dad is playing it. I'll watch him time to time again, and it's a pretty awesome game from what I've seen. I just like the fighting of the older Assassin's Creed versus the newer ones, but I'll agree that it's pretty awesome. Yeah. So I never finished it, so I don't think I should vote on
is anyone
this.
getting feedback?
Yeah, I'm getting a
Yeah, it's
little
like
bit. I
double.
don't know why, though. Trying to figure out what that is. Might just be the iPad showing off the chart, but I honestly don't know. It's muted on both sides. I have no idea what that is. Okay, there we go. So, okay. So, Josh, what do you think? Do you agree with Origins, or are you more towards Black Flag?
I mean, I would say like Origins would be a better contender for like Game of the Decade out of the two, but I feel like Black Flag is more representative of Assassin's Creed, except for the main character.
That's
You know
an
what I mean?
interesting take. What?
Yeah, I was gonna ask why that.
Expand on
It's-
that a little bit.
It's the old combat, the old side quests, the old way that it used to be, like in the 2000s, before like the shift into like Origins and Odyssey. But the height of it, like it was like almost the same height as Ezio trilogy, and I don't know, like I love Origins to death, so I'm like picking between two of my children here.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hate on it. I just feel like Black Flag is more Assassin's Creed than Origins is.
I think
You know what I mean?
think it's
'Cause
also
they're
because
trying to go a new direction.
yeah, I think it's also because since it like you said, it's very close to the originals, and when everyone thinks of Assassin's Creed, we don't think about Altair, we think about Ezio. And Ezio
Yeah,
had so
those are the glory days.
and we had Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations. And you know, that's 3 games with this main character that everyone loved.
Brotherhood.
It had a very very memorable storyline, and so we love that. So when Black Flag, it has that much more of the OG Assassin's Creed feel. The only thing is that I think Origins does a great job at still having the remnants of that and still moving forward, which I think was hard because I was getting tired of Assassin's Creed. Like I didn't want to get it originally because I was like, all right, like Assassin's Creed been the same ever since the whole Desmond Miles' Jesus thing and like everything, you know, the apocalypse happened and all this other crap. I was like, all right, I'm tired of this. Like this is, you know, I don't know if I want to get another Assassin's Creed game. And Origins brought that love back for me. Odyssey is a different story. That's why it's not in the list.
Yeah.
I'm
I don't think anyone put it.
a Spartan that doesn't have can't even use a shield. I'm not a historian, but like, you know, come on, you know, might as well have a Viking
Yeah.
with no axe or you know, I don't know. It just for me like Odyssey.
No beard.
Yeah, and Odyssey, like it just, I think Assassin's Creed got to the point where it was like it didn't want to lose the title and the IP of Assassin's Creed that makes it sales, but it wanted to make something
Right.
new. So it made Odyssey, where you can choose to be a boy and a girl, you could choose a bunch of other stuff or whatever, but then you're still trying to be an ancestor to whoever I forgot who the girl was that you played in the present time. And then, you know, it like wanted you to be an RPG, but it didn't go through the Assassin's Creed storyline. I don't know. It didn't get it for me. Origins was cool because it was like the origins of the Assassin's Creed, like the actual thing, and
Yeah.
the way they did it in Egypt was gorgeous, and sliding down the pyramids and the big monument, everything. It was a beautiful game, and it was more memorable for
And the
me.
villain, the cult of villains was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
like
man.
the way they were each representative of a god and stuff. It was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
The DLC with the gods, they was so much better than Odyssey's.
For Composa,
Yeah.
currently we're on bracket 2, Assassin's Creed Origins versus Black Flag, and I think as a total, I think we could all agree that Origins wins this bracket. Are we in agree?
Yep.
Okay, Origins is going to move on. We're going to kind of speed it up just a tiny bit because we got a lot to go, and the real discussions are coming pretty soon because here we go. Next up, Metal Gear Solid 5 versus Death Stranding, both from Hideo Kojima in 2 different studios and 2 different times. That feels like forever ago. Josh, you go ahead. What's your opinion on which one do you think should move on?
I think it's hard because like they both brought a lot of innovation in their own ways, but I feel like Metal Gear Solid is more fun and like for like more people.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it's more of a popular choice, I guess. But for me, I don't know. I wouldn't put either of these my game of the decade.
Okay.
So
Oh,
I don't know,
that reminds me. Actually, everyone here, do me a favor and just write down what you think should be the game of the decade and what you think will win game of the decade, if it differs.
Oh, God.
Just so when we're at the end, we can kind of look back at that. That being said, Josh, to your point, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to your point, some of the things that we should like keep in mind when we're deciding these games is, and I wrote it down on the list, but it's how memorable the game is. You know, how it impacts your life to where you remember it, and it's something that's not just like, oh yeah, I forgot about that game. No, it's like it's a game that you hear the title and it just brings back memories. Character mechanics, game design, level design, the overall world building, and the world that it provides, that it gives you. Like, is it something special? Is there anything they do that's game changing? Gameplay, obviously, and is it a game? It doesn't necessarily have to make any of your decisions to whether it moves on or not, but just to keep in mind, is it a game that changes the industry? Is it something that moves the industry forward and makes it towards becoming that game of the decade? So just to keep that in mind. But as you were saying, Death Stranding versus Metal Gear Solid 5, you were saying MGS 5 is more fun, right? But Death Stranding, what were you saying about that?
Well, Death Stranding is definitely more innovative and like crazy. But I think the thing is, like, that doesn't work for everyone, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yes, it definitely pushes the industry, but not for everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
I think IGN gave it like a 6.
Yeah, but it's IGN.
No, it's definitely not a 6.
It was a 6 point something, but it was in the 6 range.
Well, it's IGN, so I don't really trust them.
Yeah.
I think no one else here other than me and Josh has played Death Stranding, correct?
Yep. I mean, I saw you beat it, so I mean, at least for me, from what you told me, I would say Death Stranding because it's, I don't know, I saw the ending. I think it's a lot more complex in a way, at least from what you told me. So I never played the Metal Gear game, so I would say my vote is Death Stranding.
I've played Metal Gear Solid 5, so I mean, I guess my vote goes there by default, even though I got bored of it halfway through.
So I've also played both of them, and I'm a ginormous Metal Gear fan since I was a kid. As a matter of fact, probably my first gaming memory ever is Metal Gear Solid 1 on my dad's PlayStation 1. Sitting down on the edge of his bed playing it when Liquid reveals this big secret, and just mind blown. You know, I didn't understand a thing that was going on, but it seemed really cool because I was only like 5 years old.
They're brothers.
It was like I love Metal Gear, man. And when Metal Gear Solid 5 came out, I this was the only collector's edition I've ever purchased ever in video games. Because I didn't think they would come out with another one after Metal Gear Solid 4. So my excitement was through the roof. So from what it sounds like, I should go for Metal Gear Solid 5. And if Metal Gear Solid 5 was completed, it would have definitely won this by a landslide. But it wasn't. The game was so much fun. The mechanics were so great. The stealth mechanics in it are some of the best ever. The graphics were phenomenal. The engine that they ran it on, the Fox engine, is way ahead of its time. It's a phenomenal game. They just didn't finish it. My collector's edition, I was talking about this earlier on Facebook on one of, I think, Josh's posts. But the collector's edition comes with a CD that finishes the game for you. It's a video, and it starts off with the CGI or the graphics, whatever, and the audio, and then it starts cutting off of the audio, and then it goes into concept art with audio, and then it gets back to the CGI with no audio, and then they still didn't finish it. So this game definitely, I as much as I love Metal Gear, Death Stranding is the better game. It's not only is it completed, but it also is game changing. It developed a new way of playing with other players without being with them. In the game, if you're traveling through a certain area and another player somewhere else around the world travel through that area and put down a ladder across a creek, that ladder is now in your game and you're able to use that to cross the creek. And it's amazing what that can do for the future of video games, to where if you're playing a game and you can be connected with other players and building out a world together without ever having to be online. And the graphics were amazing, and although the story is really crazy weird and it's not for everyone, I think out of these two, I think it moves on. But do you guys agree? What do you think? Any questions on it?
Nope. I say Death Stranding.
All right, so Death Stranding moves on. Emily, you're right. Origins did move on. We're going with Death Stranding. All right, moving on to the next part. I think this is going to be a bitch. Witcher 3. It's not going to be a bitch. Not for me, at least. Witcher 3 versus Jedi Fallen Order.
Witcher 3.
Witcher 3.
Alright. I didn't play Witcher 3, so...
Well, now you know you have to.
Well,
No, I have
if you played Ghost of Tsushima, you should play Witcher 3.
Yes.
I will definitely do it. I mean, I played Jedi Fallen Order.
I mean,
but
I'm probably the biggest Star Wars fan here, and I'm still saying Witcher 3.
Yeah. So that says a lot, man.
Yeah.
Like, a lot. Matter of fact, you should be wearing the Boba Fett robe.
Don't get me wrong. Damn, I should. But Fallen Order was a great game.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I think it was EA's first actually good Star Wars game since they got the license.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's
Yeah, you can't.
I don't know. Dude.
Can't touch the Witcher.
The Witcher is just so huge,
Yeah.
and there's so much to do, and I don't know, man.
I think I was playing Jedi Fallen Order when Adria was pregnant, and then playing the game midway through it. That's when I was like, if it's a girl, I'm gonna name her Leia.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah. So
That's
so-
interesting.
But
I think it would have been a fair comparison to put Fallen Order with one of the Dark Souls games or Bloodborne.
Yeah,
or
so
something.
I was gonna do that, but the
very-
problem is that we have Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, and Bloodborne. So I definitely wanted to put Sekiro versus either Bloodborne or Dark Souls because they're very comparable, and I think it would make a really good argument. But then Bloodborne was kind of left out, and
Right.
and I didn't find it fair with Uncharted and Witcher because they're so vastly different. and I feel like it's going to be too hard of a choice so early on. I think I think in agreement. I think we're all going to probably move on Uncharted 4. Maybe, I have no idea. But that being said, I was making this chart and those were the last two, and I definitely wanted to put Dark Souls versus Sekiro or Bloodborne so that it's a fair comparison. Jedi Fallen Order. That being said, though, I agree. It's very similar to the Dark Souls games, and it takes a lot from it. But I think the reason why, I think the things that hold Jedi Fallen Order back are, one, I think the level design is okay. I just think it borrows too much from the Dark Souls games, that it isn't original enough for it to really I think it's a great game. I love Fallen Order, and I can't wait for the next one. And I think it's a great job that EA did after the freaking nightmare that they've done with prior release of Battlefronts and first release. Now it's really good, but I just think they borrowed way too much, and it isn't original enough for me to be able to move forward. And on top of that, it's The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 is it's
Also-
way beyond that.
Also, bro, Witcher 3 has dynamic beard growth. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, we're getting to that next, actually. Great segue into the Red Dead Redemption 1 versus Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, I think this one's interesting. I think this is where it starts getting really interesting.
Paul. Man, I don't know, man.
Do we go with the nostalgic Red Dead Redemption 1, the original, the one that started it all? Or do we go with Arthur
played
Morgan?
Red Dead 1. This shit must have been when we were in high school. We must have been in I think it was either junior or sophomore.
It came out my senior year.
So we must have been sophomore.
It was 2010.
2010, yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Right on
2010.
the edge of the decade.
No, we were sophomore. I played that game and beat it in a week because I was grounded for that gas mask incident that we had. And I remember it specifically because I beat it on the PlayStation because I had borrowed it from you and you had my Xbox.
Oh, you're right.
And that game is Red Dead 1 is I would say near and dear because it was just a crazy fun game. And I don't know, the thing is between the two of them, Red Dead 2 was phenomenal on its own. I mean, the story and everything. Fuck, I don't know. I think I need. What do you think, Vincent? Because I'm a little stuck with
Go
the
ahead,
two.
Vincent.
I think I'd rather let Ralph go first because he really wants to say something. So I'm gonna let him go first, and then I'll go after. He's ready.
All right,
He's
So, I played both of these games when they came out. We had a lot of good memories with the first one, and we also have a lot of good memories with the second one. But I think I'm gonna pick out of these two. I'm gonna pick two because I'm trying to be as objective as possible because two just improved on what made one great. You know what I mean? In terms of story, in terms of the world, in terms of what you can do in the world. It just kind of got one and injected steroids into it. You know what I'm saying? So, and the graphics as well. And also, I feel like Arthur Morgan is a little bit more. I mean, I might get crucified for saying this by you guys, but I think Arthur Morgan is a little bit more memorable than John Marston. Because, I mean, just because of the money. I'm here for money. Give me the money. Just all his money quotes alone I think are gold. So, and also, bro, all the outfits you could have, you can build an outfit in that game from head to toe, and you can just kind of stroll around the camp and make coffee and stuff. I mean, the immersion is just out of this world. So you could shave specific parts of your face, bro.
Yeah.
It's not even just a matter of shaving your face. It's specific parts of your face that you get a fucking straight razor and you... Come on, dude. So...
Fuck. I mean, no, it was super immersive. That's why it's a tough one. Vincent, go. You go, dale.
Can't hear you,
oh,
bro.
sorry. You want me to go?
There you go.
All right. It's Red Dead Redemption 2 for me. Red Dead Redemption 1 will always be near and dear to my heart. It will still always be one of the best games I've ever played. And I still love Arthur Morgan, and I think the ending was one of the best endings in video games. And it is a phenomenal game in every single right. But Red Dead Redemption 2 does the one thing that I again, my own personal opinion, but it does the one thing that The Last of Us Part 2 didn't do, and that it justified itself. I didn't think Red Dead Redemption 1 needed a sequel. And when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, I think like everyone else, it's one of those like, I'm so excited they're making a second one. But then the next part crosses into your mind and it's like, but why? You know, because then you start thinking like, John Marston died. That was my boy. Like, what are you going to make after this? I already played as his kid. I already got revenge. What else are you going to do? So when they announced that it's a prequel, I was like, okay, like, that's kind of cool. At least I get to see John Marston, you know, during this, or if I get to play him, whatever. But then it still dawned in my head, and I think it dawned in a lot of players' head, and it's like, does this still, like, how is that going to work? Oh, now I'm going to play as a different character? I'm not going to play as my favorite character? Like, oh, I don't know. Like, and then it came out. And not only did I get to play as a different character than what was my favorite character, I also loved him. And I actually ended up liking him more. And that's, again, for me personally, that's what The Last of Us Part 2 failed at. It didn't justify its sequel. And on top of that, when it changed perspectives, I didn't like that person. And not only did I not like that person, I hated that person. And I never got to actually, like, even get to the same level as I did with the original character. So in Red Dead Redemption 2, I love Arthur Morgan. The supporting cast was way better. And I have a plan. Like, I just, like, everything about that game. I just need money. Like,
I know. A boat.
I got a plan. A boat. Like, it's just... Like and graphically, it's still probably like right there at the one of the best looking games ever, and it probably will be for a little while.
Also, I really like the themes that are kind of brought to light in Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah,
like it's the whole coming of the new age and like old versus new kind of thing, because it's literally the turn of the century, right? It's 1899. And, like, you got this gang of outlaws that have been doing outlaw things for the past, like, 30 years or whatever. But, like, you know, cars exist. You know what I mean? Like, lawnmowers exist now. And there's, like, a more organized... No, like, I'm serious. Like, I remember reading the newspaper in the game and there being an article saying, like, there's a new motorized machine that can, like, cut your grass. But, like... you know, there are these guys that are just trying to like stay relevant. You know what I mean? Like the things that they've been doing for the last 30 years don't matter anymore because law enforcement is more organized and centralized, and they're just like refusing to get with the times, and the times are catching up to them. And I just think that was just like a really interesting sort of theme and way to kind of go along with the story.
No, and I also like that. Just speaking about the themes. Is that I like the fact... So in Red Dead Redemption 1, you play an ex-outlaw who has to hunt his you know, group, his old group, in order to retrieve his family from the you know, government. And that was a great game, and I love the story about it, and it was really well done. But what I like about... But the problem is that Red Dead Redemption 1 is that you play as an outlaw, and you're still an outlaw hunting other outlaws in order to stop being one. And... While that was great, I really like that in Red Dead Redemption 2, you're a straight up outlaw. But it's through the journey of being an outlaw that you and your character both realize the life that you're living in and the decisions you're making are good decisions. When you play any Rockstar game, any Grand Theft Auto or any Red Dead Redemption, and we're talking about me here, you guys know how I play this game. I am the devil in this game. I am the worst. I love messing with people and like killing people in the game and running them over and throwing them in the train tracks and like, and I'm not psycho. It's just fun in the game. It just is what it is. But it actually made you like, by the end of Red Dead Redemption 2, you know, I wanted Arthur to be good. I wanted Arthur to make good decisions and to be there for his fellow outlaws and like, you know, and do the right thing in a sense. And that I think was so like game changing for me because I was like, holy shit, like this game made me everything I wanted to be. I wanted to be an outlaw in the old west and do whatever I want and run with a gang and do all that stuff and rob banks and trains. And by the way, the whole like robbery situations were amazing and cinematically
Beautiful.
insane, and it was awesome. But the fact that I got to do everything I wanted to do as an outlaw, and still at the end I was like, Arthur, like, leave this life, man. Like, I think they did a great job. Josh, I'm so sorry we've been talking like crazy. Please give your opinion,
No,
man.
it's all good. My simple answer is I could never play Red Dead Redemption 1 because I fucking hate Rockstar mechanics until Red Dead 2 when they finally made them smooth.
Okay.
So that's the short answer. But I've seen the whole, like, all the cutscenes of Red Dead 1. I still love it, like the story. But I fucking hate old Rockstar mechanics.
Okay.
Like, they're terrible.
Good respect that.
So just for me, like, objectively, like, everything about 2 is better. And the
Also-
story is the same or better. So
Yeah. Also, one last thing. The characters in Red Dead 2 make me feel better about myself. Because Arthur, like, as cool as he is and as memorable as he is, at the end of the day is a loser. Because he's a 36-year-old man who has no money, who has to, like, live as a criminal, and they don't glorify the outlaw lifestyle in that game at all. Like, it's a messed up,
It's brutal.
grimy existence. And he's got to sleep, like, on mats. Like, he's literally a hobo. Like, he's homeless. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're all homeless.
I love the fact that they do that to where you start off on the run and then you get to a new camp and it's got a beautiful view, but you're intense. Then you get to another camp and then you get to the plantation and then you're living like a king, essentially, as an outlaw. You know, you're living this beautiful plantation and things are getting better and you're making more money and you're doing this. And then after that, it just, everything goes to shit. And then you're going lower and lower and lower until the point where you're a hobo. Like, you got nothing left because.
And you got tuberculosis.
And you got what? Oh yeah.
Tuberculosis.
we don't need to talk about that in too much
Wow.
detail.
Alrighty. So
Yeah. All right. So I
Rest-
think we
rest-
decided on
rest-
that.
Rest in peace, Arthur.
Arthur Morgan. All right. So Red Dead Redemption 2 moves on. Next up is one game I did play. I didn't play the story. Actually, I don't even know. Does it have a story? I never played the other one. So Titanfall 2 versus Mass Effect 2. I think this will be strictly between Ralph and Josh. Me and John will give out our opinions or questions as we move on from this. But you guys decide. What do you think? Titanfall 2 versus Mass Effect 2. Who should move on?
Mass Effect 2.
That's tough, man. They're like different genres completely.
Yeah, they're very different genres.
Yeah.
And they're both amazing. Like, Titanfall 2 is named one of the best shooters of the decade. It's just intense, and I still play it to this day. It came out on Steam recently, and it's still one of the top 100 most popular games on Steam. And I mean, it's gotten like it was nominated for Game of the Year 2016, and it still got other awards. But I mean, like, for me personally, I don't know, man. That is tough.
The thing with me for this, because I love both, right? And I think
Uh-huh.
Mass Effect 2 has a better story, like 100%.
Oh, of course.
But-
Yeah, that's the whole point of Mass Effect.
Right. But I think Titanfall does a lot more to innovate its own genre because we can't compare them against each other. So
Yeah.
you have to compare them within their own thing, right? So
Uh-huh.
Mass Effect 2, like it's one of the best of its genre, but it doesn't do anything new. You know what I mean? Like, if anything, the only thing it really does is like whenever the character side quests come up, like you have to do it at that moment or else they'll die later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there was like that they had like a very important like urgency to character side missions that you never see in other games.
Yeah.
But that's like the only thing in Mass Effect 2 though. But in Titanfall, you have the grappling hooks, you have the wall running, you have things that like are in almost every FPS now because of Titanfall. You know what I mean? So I think that would be more. It's more important to its own genre, I would say. So I think I will go with that.
But also take into account, don't think about the tragedy of Mass Effect 3 from what I've heard. Just take into account Mass Effect 2 as its own game.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's like the thing is,
That's
Mass
fine.
Effect 2 does everything that a sequel's supposed to do, in my opinion. Like, people have called it the Empire Strikes Back of video games, and I kind of agree with that because it builds on the universe that already exists without taking away from it. It expands the story without detracting from the quality of it. And it kind of expands on characters that have been there. It introduces new characters really, really well. So I think really it's like a masterpiece of storytelling, Mass Effect 2. So, I mean, and it's a masterpiece that hasn't, the Mass Effect games that came after that haven't been able to even top that. Right? So, and a lot of games haven't either. So, I mean, and also, like I showed this to Josh earlier, Mass Effect 2 is like in the Smithsonian American Art Museum. It's like, let me see.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's got its own exhibition in the Smithsonian. You know what I'm saying? So like that's an accolade, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's something you gotta take into account. So it's really hard.
Now,
for me.
question: if Mass Effect 2, let's just asking, Mass Effect 2 and Titanfall 2, both completely remade from the bottom up, and Titanfall 2 would have a full-blown story, which one would be more? Which one do you think would still progress from here? Because obviously Mass Effect 2 is a lot older, Titanfall is a lot newer, but Mass Effect is all about the story versus Titanfall is all about the multiplayer. So if we can balance them out, do we still agree? Do you still have the same opinions of Titanfall moving on or Mass Effect moving on, or what do you think?
I think Titanfall 2, even though the story wasn't the highlight of Titanfall 2, a lot of people still like it. A lot of people like that it kind of brought a universe to life. And the Titan you're assigned to, BT, like, you actually grow to care about him. You like the dynamic between your character and the Titan. So even though it's not like the best story of all time, it's still a competent story. It's still a well done story. You know what I'm saying? Whereas I don't even think Mass Effect 2 had a multiplayer. Did it have? I don't think
No.
it did. No, it didn't.
3 did.
3
That was when it started.
Yeah.
So what's our decision? Titanfall
I think
or Mass Effect?
it's tough. I mean, I still think that Titanfall does more for its own genre.
You know what? I'm gonna go for Titanfall because I'm still playing Titanfall. Whereas I haven't played Mass Effect 2 and
Emily votes Titanfall. I think I've never played Mass Effect 2, so I can't speak to it. I did play Mass Effect 1 for 15 minutes, and then I got extremely turned off by the terrible mechanics of its time. But I did play.
2 is way better.
I definitely I will 100% give the trilogy a chance one day. I did play Andromeda and I did play Titanfall 1 and 2. And from the little bit that I know from both, I think if Mass Effect was done correctly, I think it definitely would have moved on without even a question. I just think it was so reliant. I think again, and this is kind of hypocritical because I just said earlier about don't think about the third one, but really the second one relies on the third one a lot. And I think that takes a lot into account. But that being said, I think Titanfall 2, like Josh says, moves the genre forward in the same way that, for example, Apex, which is obviously a multiplayer free-to-play battle royale game, it created one of the most useful new pieces of technology in multiplayer history. And it sounds stupid, but it's the pinging system. It's the system of and it might not have been the first one. I might be wrong on that, but it's definitely the one that brought it to life. And the pinging system of being able to communicate with your team and ping exactly what you're trying to tell them you see, or pinging enemies or pinging locations or items or whatever, helped move the multiplayer industry forward. That's why now you have Call of Duty Modern Warfare that has the pinging system that it helps be more tactical. It helps move the game forward. And I think Titanfall, with all its mechanics and everything that it's done, it really has moved the genre forward. I would personally play Titanfall whenever. I'd be down. So me personally, I think, even though I don't know much about Mass Effect, I think I agree.
Titanfall it is.
Cool. So Titanfall moves on.
I still love Mass Effect though.
Yeah. Just for the record.
This is like, for me, this is me like comparing two children.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
Josh said earlier.
Just for the record of everyone watching, every one of these games are like our children. Some we like more than others. I think parents all can agree with that. So let's go ahead and move on to the next part. This is going to be a tough one for you, Josh. Bro, you got your whiskey ready, man? This is Dark Souls 3 versus Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. The ball's in your court, man.
That one, Sekiro probably. It would be harder if Dark Souls 3 went against Bloodborne, I would say.
Okay.
But in this case,
Probably
Sekiro.
Sekiro. Okay. Ralph, have you played Dark Souls 3?
I played Dark Souls 1 and I couldn't get into it. But that being said, that's a very old game. Dark Souls 3's really improved, I'm sure. Yeah, so, but Sekiro got me like, bro, like I'm still on New Game Plus. I was literally playing it before this stream. I was in Simpool, bro.
Jesus.
And it's just, the sword fighting in Sekiro is amazing. Like, the clash of the swords, it's super high paced, and it's merciless. Like, if you make a mistake, you're done. That's it. You die. You know what I'm saying? And it drives me to challenge myself more. Like, I'm always like, I need to get better. And in New Game Plus, it gives you the choice to go charmless, which means that if you don't deflect, it's not even a matter of blocking. If you don't deflect, if you don't hit the block button right when the strike's about to come to you, you lose almost as much health as if when you actually get hit.
So it was basically a pointless parry.
Yeah, essentially. So, I mean, like, and I still
You gotta
want to
be on your shit.
I'm still trying to, and the music, the score. Bro, Josh and I, when he comes over to my house, I put on the freaking Fountainhead Palace music, ambient music, and we just start drinking to that music. And I mean, that's
how we do.
everything, bro. Everything about that game is phenomenal.
I never got to really play Dark Souls 3. I played a little bit of Dark Souls 1 from, I think, what was it, Jose's house? That you made me play,
Yeah.
Josh? And yeah, it's fun. But I did get to play. I obviously bought Sekiro, and I got to play it. I haven't gotten to finish it yet. I will beat that game, even though it pisses me off. But that being said, I think I'm gonna agree. Sekiro is overall the better game. It's also like just stunningly gorgeous.
It really is.
For what it is, it's just
you
it's
haven't
great.
even gotten to the gorgeous places yet.
I know.
Too.
I'm excited for when that
just
comes.
wait.
Yeah, especially after playing Ghost.
Yeah.
I'm itching for more samurai style games. So I'm in it, man.
Waiting for you to get to that 8, bro.
I don't want to talk about that. So I think, John, what do you think? Do you agree?
Yeah,
Opinion?
I agree for
Okay,
sure.
so-
Sekiro.
Sekiro moves
I
on.
haven't played either, but I definitely gotta play it because I'm definitely on that samurai wave. So yeah.
John, you're gonna hate it. Dead Space 2 versus Resident Evil 2 remake. By the way, just to bring up,
Say it
Emily
again.
Emily mentioned League of Legends created the ping system, and Apex stole it wholesale for Battle Royale. So I do stand corrected. League of Legends did create it, but like I said before, even though they did technically steal it, they did do a great job at making it super smooth and bringing it to the masses as far as Battle Royales go. And obviously, League of Legends is it's a top-down style game, right? It's very team-based, top-down style game, and Battle Royale. Apex is a first person shooter battle royale, and I think it did the ping system and made it into the masses for first person shooters, which is where we're at now. But that being said, moving on to Dead Space 2 versus Resident Evil 2 remake. I'm gonna give my opinion real quick. Actually, you know what? I'm not, because this is a lot harder now to think about it. Ralph, what do you think?
Dead Space 2.
Okay. Yep.
Dead Space, to me, I mean, Dead Space is one of my favorite franchises of all time. And Dead Space 2, I mean, Dead Space 1, which came out before the decade, so it doesn't count. But Dead Space 1 was revolutionary to me because it made me appreciate the situation the characters were in. Because before that, and Resident Evil 2 Remake is also guilty of this, is also part of this. Before that, I'd go through like a zombie game or a horror game, and I'd be like, all right, there are zombies.
Yep.
I'm going to kill them. All right, I'm going to go to the next room. There are more zombies. I'm going to kill them. But Dead Space, and Dead Space 2 even more so, like, made me really appreciate, like, the PTSD that you would kind of be dealing with in a situation like this. The sheer trauma, the kind of the claustrophobia. Like, I felt all of it. You know what I mean? Like, I was really just unsettled throughout the entire game of Dead Space. Even in times where it wasn't supposed to be scary, that you're just walking through places, like, you still feel kind of you're just worried.
You
bro.
never felt safe.
Yeah.
Exactly, dude. You're never quite calm in this game, bro. And Dead Space 2 kind of hiked up the scale, because in Dead Space 1 you were on a ship, the Ishimura. In Dead Space 2 you're in a city.
No.
And I mean, it's I don't know, the story's kind of wild. It's got like amazing reviews all around. It sold 2 million copies in the first week. And people compare it to Aliens, like the movie Aliens, in terms of like being a horror sequel. And I agree, dude. Like it's just terrifying. And it really balances out. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant here. This is my last
This is
one.
the whole point. Yeah, go.
It really. One thing that Dead Space 2 did really well, I think it balanced out the tense, horrifying aspects, like high-paced action. You know, Dead Space 1 leaned really heavily into like the slow, creeping, like existential dread, and Dead Space 2 had that too, but then it's like compounded with like these high-paced action sequences that are still stressful, but in a different way. You know what I mean? So you're constantly getting the pace changes up on you. It's always fresh. So yeah, I mean,
John?
Dead Space 2 for sure. One word, Ezio's, which
oh
was
yeah,
guys. And I think Dead Space 2 again is near and dear, and for me it's scarier for me than Resident Evil 2.
yeah, for sure.
And I think if it's definitely probably top 3 in the horror games, at least on my list. But my vote's Dead Space 2. That game, adding to what Socrates was saying about how, you know, you felt more PTSD and more like you felt even just walking in the halls, you're like, fuck, something's gonna come
Constantly
up.
paranoid.
Yeah. So,
And you even, it's kind of, the trauma is kind of melded flawlessly into the game, because there are things that happen to you that you have to react to in the game. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil too much here, but at the end of the game, you realize we're never really there. They were all figments of your character's imagination because he was hallucinating, because he was so traumatized about what was going on around him. You know what I mean? So
yeah, my vote's Dead Space 2.
Josh, this is interesting because you never got to play in its entirety Dead Space 2, right?
Nope.
Okay. So what's your opinion?
Damn.
But Dead Space 2.
Okay. Cool.
I mean, just from everything that I've seen and like people talk about and everything, I think Dead Space 2 is way better. I mean, Resident Evil 2 is like it's classic video gamey, but I feel like it's nowhere near the immersion of Dead Space. You know, like
Yeah.
the whole series. And plus, I have a bias against Resident Evil for like all things. So
Okay,
that's just me.
gotcha.
Also, Smashing Pumpkins, bro.
I
Like the
Can't go wrong with
yeah,
that.
Smashing Pumpkins is all over Dead Space 2. So
I'm definitely I agree 100%. Dead Space 2 is definitely going to move on from this, and the reason why I personally think Dead Space 2 moves on 100%, as a matter of fact, any of the Dead Spaces, even Dead Space 3, is because even though Resident Evil 2, the remake, was a direct remake to the original, and I think that's great for the fans of the original, and mind you, this is coming from someone who loves Dino Crisis. That's also from Capcom, and I would love for them to make an exact original remake of the first one. I don't want them to change it, so I'm not going to discount them from doing that for Resident Evil 2. But because of the fact that they kept it so original, the dialogue was so old school, and Leon was an idiot. And like I remember him walking into the after freaking 10 no. I think it was after 6 hours of gameplay that he's already dealt with all these zombies and all this stuff, and he walks into the office, and then he's like, "I hope I don't have to make a report about this." And I was just I was just like, dude, shut up, man. He falls in love with the Chinese girl 10 minutes into meeting her and shit. You know, it's great because it's old school, but it doesn't make it a better game. It just makes it graphically better, and the mechanics are better, obviously. And it's still a great game, but Dead Space 2, story-wise, Dead Space 2 did the one thing that it hasn't been around in a long time, and it was an original IP story fantasy game, horror game that had its own story that wasn't played out. It wasn't about zombies. It wasn't about ghosts and demons. It wasn't any of that stuff. It was about these crazy morphed alien necromorph things. It created its own monsters that still give me nightmares until these days. Freaking, I can't even go into an elevator without looking up and seeing if there's a vent or something.
Ezio's.
Yeah, man, I hate those. By the way, anybody who's watching Ezio's, that's what we call I can't remember what their actual names are, but they're the necromorphs that basically hide behind things and they stick their head out to look at you, and then they run at you at full force. So we always called it Ezio's because, they sneak around just like Assassins does. But yeah, Dead Space 2 is definitely going to move on this one. And now we're going to move on to the next part, which is Horizon Zero. This was going to kill me. Horizon Zero Dawn versus God of War.
I played both. I didn't complete them. But on my vote, this is God
Who
of
invited
War,
this guy?
The last one, right? PS4?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, my vote's God of War.
Okay.
At least I just like the fighting dynamics. I like the father and son duo. I like it. So my vote's there. I like the dynamics. I like fighting with the axe. I like that whole grabbing it back and fucking shit up and throwing it. And
I highly suggest playing Horizon Zero Dawn again, though, after you played Ghost of Tsushima. There's a lot of little similarities to it, and I think you'll appreciate it more now than you did before.
Yeah.
But
I probably will. I do want to play it full, but yeah.
I recommend it.
Yeah.
It's only $20, and you get the whole game, the Ultimate Edition that comes with both
Yeah, get the
DLCs in the
complete.
game. Yeah, for $20. You can probably get it cheaper.
Yep.
Josh, Ralph.
I mean, I've only played God of War, and so I can't really contribute to the discussion. But I did really enjoy God of War. I never changed the difficulty, even though it was suggested to me many times.
Give me God of War.
Yeah, because I played it on hard right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the I don't know, dude. I like the whole post-hero scene. The dude's done all his shit and he's just trying to settle down and be a dad, but now he can't even be a dad, so he's gotta deal with more nonsense. I like that he's a Greek in Scandinavia. I thought that was like a really interesting sort of setting.
Morphing the two.
So he's dealing with like a whole new. Yeah, he's dealing with like a whole new pantheon of gods, and he doesn't know what the fuck they are.
Talking head to tell him about the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I like Atreus's character development. I like that he starts off being kind of like, and then he ends up being like a piece of shit, kind of. He gets really cocky once he finds out he's a god. And then he kind of gets humble again. So, and it was all done kind of fluidly. So
yeah.
So I would say God of War.
I think that's fair.
Cool. Now we just gotta wait for Vincent to get back.
Got some technical issues?
Probably charging.
Oh yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn is on Steam, but it's like $50.
My
No, you already
father-in-law
have it.
just downloaded.
Yeah, I already have it, so I'm just gonna wait until.
It's gonna get a PlayStation 5 upgrade. So
Oh, cool. Perfect.
yeah. Hello?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was
Back.
getting the iPad back to charging so the chart doesn't go away.
Nice.
All right, so Josh, did you give your opinion yet?
No, but I think I'm also gonna say God of War, and I think the story and gameplay are both better. Not that Horizon Zero Dawn is bad. I think like the idea, the IP of Horizon Zero Dawn is better. It's not like more Vikings and gods, like the same shit, like Thor. You know what I mean? So it's like Horizon Zero Dawn is a lot more original in its concept, but the storytelling and the gameplay is better in God of War. So I think I'm voting for that because that's what a video game is more about, the gameplay. You know?
I think this is really hard for me because I personally adore both. I'm gonna start off by saying it's God of War for me because I played the first 3 God of Wars when they came out, and I loved them. I thought they were really fun. Did I really give a shit about anything that was going on? No, it just looked really cool, and playing against gods and Zeus and all these people was cool, and it was grimy and bloody, and yeah, it was fun, but it wasn't my favorite game in the world. It was just a game I really liked. And then God of War came out, and it lives with me forever. It's the story I thought was great. I love the fact, like you said, Ralph, that he's a Greek god or a god from, the Greek mythology, and he's in Norse mythology now. And I love that concept. I love the concept of the father and son journey, even though it's I think video games got into that theme a lot in a lot of different titles where they had a lot of this father-daughter, father-son, but God of War did it, I think, in a great way. But by far my favorite thing about God of War is the fighting mechanics. To me, God of War has the best fighting mechanics in any video game ever made. Personally, just because it's so smooth, it's so satisfying, it's so heavy, it has so much weight to it, and there's so many different options of combat. Not only against different types of enemies, but also just the way you control Kratos and the way he fights, and you have like 5 different options for when you're using the axe, 5 different options when you're using the chaos blades, 5 different options when you're just bare fist, 5 different options when you're using the shields. That's not including your runes and your special abilities. The mechanics are great. The level design was amazing. I love the open linear world that it gives you. It's linear, but it's open. It's not too massive where like I have to spend 300 hours to find everything, but it's not super tight like the original Last of Us or the original Uncharted kind of games where it's like, very, very linear and stuff like that. It's open enough where you get to have fun, but it's not overwhelming. And on top of that, it was an absolutely beautiful game. Horizon Zero Dawn, that being said, is a phenomenal game. I thought the story was amazing. It was very original. I love fighting the freaking robot dinosaurs.
Emily made some good points about it, Horizon Zero Dawn too.
Yeah, looking at it now. Essentially, so Emily says, speaking of gaming innovations, Horizon Zero Dawn did something really fantastic with their graphic systems to make it easier to render. Essentially, it only renders what's directly in your field of view in order to increase performance, and everything otherwise is just like blobs. I mean, I vote God of War because it was fantastic, but I got a nod to my Dino boys for making some quality too. Horizon Zero Dawn was an amazing game. By far, one of my favorite games of this generation. It is gorgeous graphically. It mechanically is phenomenal. It's just the story was great. It was grand. But on a personal level with Aloy, it didn't hit me as much as this story did with Kratos and Atreus. And it wasn't the combat was amazing, but just wasn't as satisfying as God of War. So I think we're all in agreement.
Yep.
God of War moves on, and now we're into Doom Eternal versus Doom 2016.
That's not really a contest because I mean, Doom Eternal is. I mean, Doom 2016 was amazing, but Doom Eternal just like. I mean, Doom Eternal is one of, if not the single best first-person shooter I've ever played in my life. The soundtrack is from the moment you turn on the game and you get into the main menu music is incredible. Like the main menu music when I first opened the game got me hyped to play the game. And every time, dude. And like the pace is incredible. I mean, the combat is smooth, the executions are all smooth. And all the level design is fantastic. I mean, it really accomplishes what it sets out to do. And it's kind of like you got all these different weapons, and you have all these different abilities you can choose from that you got to use in sequence because there's a purpose to everything. And what I love about Doom Eternal is that you have to strategize on the go. That you can't just stop and think about shit. Because there are like 20 million demons coming after you. You gotta like jump around and think fast and all this shit. And I love it, dude. It's a great kind of it's great for if you're an adrenaline junkie and you just love metal. That's the way to go. That game's incredible.
Josh?
I mean, out of these two games, Doom Eternal is an improvement, like by far. I mean, not really by far, because Doom 2016 was pretty damn good. But I don't know, like, the only thing that bothers me is that, like, Doom Eternal is technically 2020. So, that's, like, really the only issue I have here.
Because it's in 2020?
So, yeah.
I mean...
Because it's way better.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
But you're saying just because it was made in 2020, or you're just saying, like, the time between the two games coming out mechanically and, like, its advantages and stuff?
He's saying that since it came out in 2020, it's technically a new decade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
Like,
I know we had that earlier, but I just it could have been because at the end of the day, I could have done. I was thinking about just doing game of the generation of this console generation, but the reason I just call it of the decade is because there are some games that came out in the previous generation that migrated into this generation. And they're like for example, Last of Us Part 1 came out on PlayStation 3, but it literally like a few months later it was PlayStation 4 remastered, and it basically almost launched with the generation title. So it's certain games like that that kind of, and Mass Effect 2 also, right? Mass Effect 2 came out
long time ago for Xbox 360.
Yeah, and Red Dead Redemption 1 and things like that. So I kind of wanted to just name it the decade. So the past 10 years of 2010 to 2020 or whatever, however you want to call it. I know 2020 is not over, and obviously we have like Cyberpunk coming out at the end of the year, and that's not a part of this list. But like Josh said, they might be cut off from this decade or year of Game of the Year because it's so close to the new generation. So I'm not really counting that. Ghost of Tsushima for me is like the last game that came out of this generation, of this decade of generation games. So that's why I included these into it.
All right, so Doom Eternal I think is the consensus.
Agreed.
Josh?
If you haven't played Doom Eternal, you must play Doom Eternal.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm going to.
Like I
played
can't emphasize how much you're missing out if you don't play Doom
Oh,
Eternal.
I will. I just want to finish 2016 first, and then I'll get on to it.
please do. They're both amazing.
Alrighty, so moving on. Far Cry 3 versus Fallout New Vegas.
Fallout New Vegas.
Oh,
And mind
here we
you,
go.
I've played both. I've played New Vegas and I played Far Cry 3 extensively, both of them. But I gotta pick New Vegas because the story in New Vegas is so rich, and the world is so vast, and the lore is so rich, and that's not even counting the expansions that have come out. I mean, Far Cry 3 had one expansion. It was Blood Dragon,
Mhm.
and it was really good, and it was really funny, and it was a lot of fun, but it was one expansion. And Fallout New Vegas got Dead Money, it got Honest Hearts, it got Old World Blues, it got Lonesome Road, it got about 5 expansions. And each expansion is like a whole other world. You know what I'm saying? That you could just get lost in. And it's like, I don't know, dude. It's every single faction in the game. There's no good faction in the game. You know what I mean? So you're not necessarily ashamed by the choices you make, really, because like the two main antagonistic factions are Caesar's Legion and the NCR, the New California Republic. And even though Caesar's Legion is totalitarian and oppressive and essentially like a bunch of raiders that just try to like copy the Romans aesthetically, the NCR is kind of like crippled with corruption, overtaxation, bureaucracy that kind of grinds everything to a standstill. So I mean, like there's just all this gray area, like gray morality and stuff like that, and it's also like so replayable because you can start the game again and just make completely different choices, and it'll take you through a whole different adventure. So that's why I got to give my thing to New Vegas.
Josh?
I have played neither.
Okay.
So, well, I finished neither. I've started both, but not gotten far. So I don't know. I don't really have an opinion, but I do know that more people know Boss. That's like it. That's as much input as I have to offer.
Yeah. I think this might be between John, me, and Ralph because this is where things start getting interesting because I'm obviously going to go for Far Cry 3. And I don't mean obviously because it's like obviously better. I'm just saying obviously because they know that I'm a huge fan of Far Cry 3.
Yeah.
John, do you want to give an opinion before me and Ralph go at it until we find a compromise?
I mean, I played Far Cry 4. I didn't play Fallout. I liked Far Cry 4, so my vote's with Far Cry. So you guys could go at each other's necks.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm not gonna lie. I never played New Vegas. Well, I never really played it. I tried it on your computer a few years ago, but I have played Fallout 4, and the problem that I have with the Fallout titles isn't really I love the open world aspect. I love the post-apocalyptic open world RPG, create my own story, choose my own adventure game, and I love how deep the game really gets into its philosophies, especially with its factions and its characters. And I think it does a great job because, you know, I've played other Bethesda titles like Skyrim and Oblivion and Morrowind and stuff like that. So I know how it works, and I do love the original Bethesda games. But there's something about the mechanics for me that just it never really spoke to me. And although I think New Vegas is overall it's a great game, I just for me personally Far Cry 3 is one it's the best in the series of Far Cry. The rest of the Far Cry is really but I think Far Cry 3 really brought a villain to the forefront of video games. It really like a lot of video games have villains, right? But this was a villain that was right in your face. It's on the box art. It's through the story. He's memorable. He's lovable. He's like, you hate him, you love him. He's intriguing. And he just like it just brought this like overall simplified objective of the antagonist and the protagonist. And I just love the first person open world way that it did it. I thought the graphics were great. I think the story was great. I think the mechanics were great and fun. I think that it was extremely memorable. And yeah, that's that. Again, this is my own personal favorite would be Far Cry 3. And the reason also is because even though New Vegas is its own game, and I'm not trying to compare it with other ones, in its series, because that's not fair, because Far Cry obviously has games that I don't really like either. The problem that I have is because it's Bethesda likes to create its games. It's all in the same engine, but they're all virtually the same, like in the sense of like it, like the way it looks and the way it works and the way it is. Fallout 4 and Fallout New Vegas, it's almost like a skin replacement in the way it looks. Again, you can come at me. I'm just saying, like, that's my only thing about it. Like Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 2 and all that stuff, it's very similar in the way it is. And Far Cry 3, what it did is that you have Far Cry 2 and Far Cry 1, which Far Cry 2 had a lot of great mechanics to it. And actually, there's a comparison if anybody ever gets a chance, Far Cry 2 versus, I think, Far Cry 5. And you get to see, like, it has a lot better dynamics, it has better fire dynamics and shooting dynamics and AI and all that stuff. But Far Cry 3 was overall much more improved and next generation looking and performing game than its predecessors. Versus New Vegas, and again, this is just my opinion, but it doesn't feel like it's that like forward step. It didn't change its series to, like, it didn't take its series to the next level as far as overall as a game. That's just my opinion. But Ralph, you go ahead. You played both of them, so you have better insight than I do when it comes to that.
Yeah. The difference, the big difference for me is when I played Far Cry 3.
Emily doesn't agree with me at all, by the way. She's like, bro, no.
So, like, the big difference with me is that I played Far Cry 3 once, and I played through the story once, and that was it. And but I've played New Vegas over and over and over again. Like, there have been times where I've, like, finished the story in New Vegas, and I'm like, shit, did I make the right decision? What could have happened if I did it this way? And then I would start it over and go on, like, this brand new adventure that was not at all similar to what I did last time. Like, I met new characters. I made entirely new decisions. I went to places that I didn't even know existed the first time around. Like, the replayability is such that I was introduced to a whole new world the second time I played. You know what I mean? It was like a whole new game. And if we're trying to, like, balance the different aspects, like if we're trying to balance gameplay and story, I don't think New Vegas's gameplay has aged well. But I still think back then it was fine. Like, the gameplay was fine, and the story is still, like, if you're a Fallout fan, like, Fallout fans are kind of, like, unanimously of the opinion that New Vegas is the best game. And I think between these two, I mean, like, just the richness of the universe and just the sheer amount of choice you could make, and dude, like, to me, it's really no contest.
So just a question, like, right? Now Emily really doesn't agree with me whatsoever. And again, I just to reiterate, I'm not saying that Far Cry, like, I'm saying that I prefer Far Cry 3. Is it a better game? In some aspects, I think so. I think New Vegas is a better game also because New Vegas is different. It's much more of an open world RPG. You get to choose different stories and have different outcomes and customize your character and do all that stuff. You can't do that in Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 is it's more of it's a much more linear story. You don't have options except for one or two moments in the game. But they're both open world games, and whatever the case may be. I just like Far Cry. I liked playing Far Cry 3 more than I did when I had the experience of New Vegas. That being said, Fallout 4, I had a great time with it too. But again, my quick question is, like you said, right? Fallout Fallout fans in general think that New Vegas is the best one, and I know Fallout has a huge following, so I'm not taking that away at all. But just for a moment, as a game, is it game changing within the industry? New Vegas.
I would say it is. I think it took storytelling to a whole new level, to be honest with you, that most open world games haven't done before. Because to treat every faction and every character and every kind of even sub faction with equal love and care in terms of like the depth of every single character you come across and every single kind of area you come across. And I mean, the weight of your decisions in that game really weigh on you, no matter what you do. You know what I mean? Like when I played Fallout, when I played Far Cry 3, the extent of my decision was like, do I kill my friends or do I like kill this one bitch? And if I kill my friends, this one chick has sex with me, but then she kills me. If I kill the bitch, then doesn't he, like, I forgot what happens, but like I guess that's another thing, is that I forgot what happened. You know what I mean? Like, if it's supposed to be like the only thing I remember about that game is Voss. But like Emily said, like, he's not even the main villain. And once he dies, the rest of the game gets kind of like, I think that I think he carried the game. And once he died, the game started to lose much of its appeal. Like, you even get moved to like a whole new area that's not as interesting as the island you were just in. And you're kind of like forced to like fight this new villain that was like Voss's boss the whole time. And he's not even that interesting. So when you finally kill him, you're like, okay. So, I mean, like, no one remembers who Voss's boss was, who the actual main villain was. You know what I mean? So I think even though Voss is one of the most memorable villains in gaming,
and he wasn't even supposed to be there for that long. He just did such a good job in the freaking audition that they kept him on as long as he did.
Yeah, but I think that he carries the game, and I think once you take him away, the game loses much of its appeal. And whereas Fallout New Vegas has so many things going for it that you could take away half of the game it is, and it'll be an amazing game that you can keep coming back to. And again, that's not even counting the expansions, which are like whole Far Cries in of themselves. So yeah, to me, like, I can't even really.
So I'm going to move New Vegas forward because I'm going to take my bias away from Far Cry 3. I love Far Cry 3, and will I play Far Cry 3 over New Vegas? Yeah, personally, that's me. But that being said, I think it's unfair to take away the fact that New Vegas, just like Emily says in the comment, it offers more. It's a you have a lot more options. It's a lot more replayability. Even though I'm not a huge fan of the mechanics, that doesn't take away from the fact that it has way more to offer. And you're right, Voss is the main point of Far Cry 3. If it wasn't for Voss, I don't know if the game would do as good. I still love the fact that this was one of the first games where I felt connected to a first-person character. Because this, even though there's been games in the past that have done that, they gave this first-person character actual voice lines, and you felt his pain in a lot of moments. When he was running, the way he would hyperventilate and the way he would move his hands and look at them, and like, I felt very connected to that, which I never felt in another first-person before. Because every other first-person, like, back then, they didn't really talk. They just kind of stood there. The other person talked for them. Or if you did speak, it was a dialogue that you have to choose. And then it just says it. You know, versus Far Cry 3, it was a completely made protagonist that has its own lines, that he has his own motion capture and everything. You're just living vicariously through him. And I thought that was really great. But we'll move Fallout New Vegas forward for its replayability and what it has to offer. It is overall in technical standpoint, it really is. It really does deserve to move forward. But we're gonna go into the next part, which I'm interested to see your opinions. Skyrim versus Grand Theft Auto 5. This is very interesting because both of these games have lived way longer than anyone ever thought they ever would. They're more successful than anyone thought they could ever be. And they have been in more platforms than probably any game has ever moved on to, or more generations. So these games really make a difference. But the decision is Skyrim versus Grand Theft Auto 5. John, what do you think?
I haven't played enough of Skyrim, but I've played
I
countless.
know, Ralph. I know, dude.
I'm sorry. He's out.
Honestly, finally. No, I'm just kidding.
I haven't played enough of it, but I don't know, man. I don't think my vote should count on this one. I feel like just blatantly saying GTA 5 would be a very bullshit thing to say. So you people go.
All right, Josh, what do you think? I think I know exactly what he's going to choose.
He's gonna get a sword or something.
For me, it's very easy, Skyrim.
Okay.
And basically, the reasons are, like, I played and had a lot of GTA 5 because of friends, not because of the game itself. But Skyrim, I put like 100 hours in because I wanted to.
Yeah, I think
Fustu
just
raw.
watching people, I think Skyrim will probably have it. At least, like, if I'm gonna even vote on this one, I would say Skyrim, because GTA is its own, it's GTA. It's a fun thing, but
It's
I
fun.
feel like Skyrim is probably better in this category.
Yeah. I say Skyrim.
Yeah, Skyrim.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say Skyrim.
You don't say. All right, hold on. Let me fix it. All right, so we're just sticking with Skyrim. Okay, so, my opinion definitely is going to be Skyrim. Grand Theft Auto 5 is a great game. I haven't laughed that much in a video game probably ever. Trevor, my boy, like, love you, dude, but Skyrim, like the same conversation we had earlier about New Vegas, it just has way more to offer as far as story goes. Grand Theft Auto has a lot though. Like it's a fun playground. It's a sandbox of a game. Like you can do a lot and you could have a lot of fun, but it gets to a certain point. Like, so when I got towards the end and I had, after the final bank robbery, I forgot how many millions of dollars you have in the bank. I went around, I bought a jet and I flew around and I bought nice cars and I modded them, whatever. But then after that, like, there's not much, you just kind of go around and run people over or blow people up. And that's it. Like, versus Skyrim, like, you could put 1,000 hours in that game and probably still not finish. And it was more memorable for me. Fighting a dragon.
And the soundtrack.
Oh,
Dude.
the soundtrack and
The soundtrack.
and just like encountering the dragon for the first time, like right at the beginning, like I was just, my jaw dropped. I was just like it was awesome, man. And Skyrim's one of those games that will live on forever. Grand Theft, you can come out with Witcher 3 and you could come out with Ghost of Tsushima and Horizon Zero Dawn, all these games, but they still, you could still revert back to Skyrim whenever you want. You could still be like, I want to play Skyrim. Like, it's there. But if a Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, no one's going to give a shit about 5 anymore, because Grand Theft Auto 6 will do everything 5 does, but better. And Skyrim, even if games come out afterwards, people still want to play Skyrim. I still want to play Oblivion, which is before Skyrim, and I still love that game, even though it's like super, it doesn't age well at all, but it's still fun. So I think Skyrim's definitely going to move on from these two. If you disagree, You're wrong. Anyways, so moving on. Oh man, here we go. This is alrighty. So we're going on an hour and a half here, so we might have to speed it up just a tiny bit so we can get towards at least the final elimination rounds a little bit quicker. But this is going to be a really tough one. Spider-Man PS4 versus Batman Arkham Knight.
Fuck.
Yep. This is a really tough one. For Ralph, I don't think it's that tough.
For me.
But for me, Josh and John, this will be tough.
Now I played through half of Spider-Man, so it's not like I haven't played all of it, but like I got to the part where they bust out of all the villains bust out of the prison.
Rikers, right?
That was the last thing I did. So is that like? Do you
That's
roughly
like
do?
middle of the game. Yeah.
So do you roughly do the same thing for the rest of the game? Like, do you like kind of like does the story kind of maintain that pace more or less? Like, is it or nah? Like what?
Well, stuff happens.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot that
there's
happens in the
stuff-
game. After that, like that's it, the game. Okay, what it does is that without I don't want to spoil it for you because it actually is phenomenal. It that part was probably the most, how do I say, like fighting wise, that was probably one of the climax of the game as far as like multiple villains, big cinematic piece. But it has a lot of moments like that with singular villains, and what Spider-Man does that I think is it had to be one of the hardest things to pull off. I can't imagine being in Insomniac Games and creating a Spider-Man game, because Spider-Man is probably the most popular comic book character ever. Obviously it's Batman, Spider-Man, Superman. Those are the top 3 biggest comic book characters ever made. But everyone generally, whether you're a DC fan, Marvel fan, whatever, everyone loves Spider-Man. I don't know anybody who doesn't like Spider-Man. And everyone knows Spider-Man's story easily. Everyone knows his villains. Everyone knows all that stuff. So imagine being Insomniac Games and creating a Spider-Man game with all the characters that we know and still make it surprising and still make it emotional and still make it unique in its own way. And what they did with the story, there's a lot of characters that they did you finish the Rikers portion, or were you like in the middle of that?
I think I finished it.
Did you see who the main bad guy was?
Was it the Japanese guy, the owner of
No, that's Mr. Negative. You have Rhino, you have Vulture, and you have Electro, and there was the guy who was in charge of them all.
I don't think I remember seeing it.
So that character is someone you already know, and everyone already knows, and it should be obvious. It's like you play it and you're like, oh, I know who this should be. But even then, they make it to where when it does get revealed, it's such an emotional impact by the acting in this game, and they have a lot of decisions that Spider-Man does that makes you like, holy shit, But yeah, it has a lot of big moments after that.
Shit. And
to for us, but it's just like damn, they did that really well.
And to answer your question, who hates Spider-Man? One person does hate Spider-Man, and that's J. Jonah Jameson. But besides that, between Spider-Man.
Whatever.
Look, man. Personally, for me, like in general, like I like Spider-Man, and Venom is my favorite. Venom isn't only like my favorite Spider-Man universe character; he's my favorite like Marvel character overall. Like I love Venom, and he's in Spider-Man's like menagerie, but still I just love Batman's overall universe more. Like I love how dark it is. I love that whole noir aspect. I love that whole I love how that game like really made you feel like Batman. And I love how the story went. Like the Joker wasn't the main villain for once, but he was still relevant
Yeah.
throughout the story. And I love getting to fight all the classic villains, and I loved how they did the Riddler trophies. Um, that was just a blast.
That was
So I think since I have like a general bias for DC, I think I'm gonna abstain from this. But yeah, that's just it's my take.
Josh.
Um, I love Spider-Man like to the bottom of my heart, but I think the main thing for me here is that Arkham Knight did everything first. You know, like the kind of combat that it is, like all the puzzles, like just pretty much everything was done there 1st. So it's kind of hard for me to like justify pushing that forward. You know what I mean? Like the Arkham series just like it made me feel like Batman before I felt like Spider-Man. You know what I mean? And Spider-Man didn't do enough new things for me to break out of that formula that Arkham started for it to push forward.
Okay.
And I love that game. Don't get me wrong. Like again,
Yeah.
these are two of my babies, but I don't know. It's not like a Marvel versus DC thing. It's just they set the formula, you know,
Yeah.
and they do it well.
Yeah, and Arkham Knight alone, story-wise alone, a lot. You know, as a comic book person too, like that story of the Arkham Knight and the Red Hood, that shit was badass. You know, even if you didn't know the Red Hood thing, like to know, like holy shit, that was a fucking Robin. That Robin, you know, that Joker supposedly killed, but not really. Like that whole, you know, issue was amazing. And then remember, it was a third game of its series. Spider-Man was the first game of its series right now. So as hard as it is, I'm gonna say Arkham Knight. I'm gonna say Arkham Knight on this one. Spider-Man was amazing, shit. One of the best Spider-Man games in the series, other than Spider-Man 2 when it came out, like on the PS2 or whatever.
Good times.
Yeah, exactly. So,
All right, so Arkham Knight it is.
Arkham.
Can I give my opinion?
Yeah. What's your opinion?
No, bro, your opinion doesn't matter.
Bro, I will shut this whole stream down. So, from the beginning, when I was making this chart, I was like, man, this is really tough because I love both, but I honestly already knew which one I wanted, and that's Arkham Knight. Spider-Man is amazing, and I love, by the way, Diamond Gamix. Hello. Spider-Man is amazing, and I remember when you first fight Wilson Fisk, and I was fighting him, and I died like 3 or 4 times, and I remember I was like, man, this is tougher than I thought. And I was getting used to the controls, and I remember that it was just like this like light bulb moment. I'm like, I'm fucking Spider-Man. I could just swing. Yep. And so like I started swinging around the room and like shooting him with the webs, and like it was just this great moment where I was like, oh, that's cool. Like I'm Spider-Man, dude. Like I got this, But that I had that same moment with Batman. And that's the moment where he's standing on the ledge, and the guy, I forgot who, I think it was Oracle or someone, and they're just like, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm evening the odds. And then like he calls the Batmobile, and as he like flies down, he goes into the Batmobile. Like those moments, I just got goosebumps thinking about it.
The button prompt. The button prompt even says press X to even
something like And so like I think because and Batman has those moments too, so they both equal out on that. I think the part that kind of differs between the two is that I didn't feel connected to Manhattan in Spider-Man as the way I did with Gotham in Arkham Knight. I felt like I was protecting that city. I felt like that was my city, and y'all need to get the hell out of here before I break every one of your bones. But in Spider-Man, like I didn't feel that connected to Manhattan, like it like the world wasn't wasn't as close to me as Gotham was. First of all, and second of all, Batman has a lot more has more mechanics like the Batmobile, and although Spider-Man has a lot of equipment, which is awesome, it's not as useful as the Batman stuff, as the grapple hook and the batarangs and all that extra stuff that you get to use. And like Batman had a lot of really cool moments, man. Like when you first get the upgraded suit and like the way that what's his name? Fox starts like describing the tri-weaves and like all this different technology in your suit. Like you felt much more like Batman. And I know it's cliche to say, but you felt more like the character in Arkham Knight than you did in Spider-Man. Even though Spider-Man still is an amazing game, Josh is right. It does take a lot from Batman. It does take a lot from other games. And hopefully we'll see some new innovations when it comes to Miles Morales because he's got some extra powers. But we're all in agreement. Arkham Knight moves on. And next up is Shadow of the Colossus versus Ghosts of Tsushima. Before we get started with this, interesting, I watched an interview with an IGN with, I believe it was one of the creative designers of Ghost of Tsushima, and he actually mentioned that when they were first building the island of Tsushima, they obviously went to Tsushima and they took pictures, and it's very forest heavy. And so they were building it out, and it was a lot of forest at the time. And he's like, and they got together and they debated, and they were like, it's too much. You felt too claustrophobic, so they wanted to open it up into fields. And so he actually took a copy of Shadow of the Colossus and started working on concept art based off of the way it looks in the open fields and the openness when you're riding the horse and all that. So he really did take inspiration from that. So I thought this would be an interesting comparison. That being said, what's your opinions? Ralph, I know you haven't played Ghost of Tsushima, so
I will say that even though I've only played Shadow of the Colossus and I've played it thanks to Josh to completion, I feel like when I play Ghost of Tsushima, I'm gonna say Ghost of Tsushima.
okay.
Like
Really?
just based on, yeah, dude, because just based on the setting and what I've seen through gameplay, and I mean it's kind of my own biases too, because I'm really interested in the setting and like the historical time period and stuff like that, and like the gameplay and all that stuff. But I don't know, like I feel like my opinion would change if I played it based on that. That being said,
Josh asking really sounds like he's got a different opinion.
Yeah. It's Shadow of the Colossus for me.
You're going with Shadow?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, the thing is, like,
Shit.
it's a remake of an old game from before this decade,
Yeah.
and Ghost of Tsushima is like it's a lot like other games, and it really the only thing it adds new and barely is combat. Everything else is like a lot like other games, especially PlayStation 4 exclusives. Like it's a lot like Horizon. It's a lot like it has like the open world feel that they like, but it's the same like character, like not RPG, not
yeah,
fully RPG.
yeah, I will say I've never played a game like Shadow of the Colossus, and
Yeah.
I've never played a game like Shadow of Colossus since then. So
That's why I say Shadow of the Colossus, because it's so unique. Like that game is pure game design, like top to bottom, bottom to top. Like everything about it, the map, everything serves to fight those bosses, and you have to figure out those 16 bosses, and it's just pure game. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like pure game. Whereas in Ghost of Tsushima, like it's beautiful, but that's it. Like you go out, you take a picture, but you didn't really do anything in the game. In Ghost of Tsushima, I mean in Shadow of the Colossus, like you're going, you're finding, you're doing stuff, like you're constantly active in it. And
Yeah.
you'll beat it in like 5 hours, which is short, but then you're gonna want to beat it faster. Or you'll want to do it harder. And I like so many games have been like inspired by Shadow of the Colossus because of its like very precise design for everything. Like every boss arena is very purposeful towards that boss. And Ghost of Tsushima, you can pick any of the duels out of where they are and put them somewhere else, and it wouldn't matter at all.
Mhm.
So like, I don't know. It's like I love both these games, but Shadow of the Colossus is like game as art. You know what I mean?
Those are all really strong points, I think.
Ghost of Tsushima is game with art.
Yeah. I personally, and I didn't think I would, but for me, it's Shadow of the Colossus. And I'll tell you exactly why I think Shadow of the Colossus is the better game of the two. Just like Josh said, Ghost of Tsushima takes a lot from other games, and there's a few things that Ghost of Tsushima does that that are unique, like the wind direction, and in the game you have the option of swiping up on the pad on the PlayStation, and you have the guiding wind that guides you to your location instead of having waypoints on the map. Little things like that. The combat was extremely satisfying, and I love the game. I think it's super fun, and I'll definitely jump on and play it again in the future.
Oh, yeah.
But there hasn't been a game that has stuck with me and has almost changed my perspective and the way I see video games since you guys brought me into Shadow of the Colossus. It is one of those games where I can remember everything of the first time I played it. I can remember you guys sitting on the couch. I can remember the smell of my apartment because it was still newish. I could still remember like not wanting to play it and then like seeing the Colossus for the first time and just like the camera panning up to see this ginormous thing, and then for me to like whistle and to see it turn around at me for the first time. Like, I remember how frustrated I was in a lot of the missions because these every Colossus is different. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle game with art.
Yeah.
And it's so the gameplay, the art direction, the level design, everything is in perfect cohesion. And this is one of those games that is almost perfection in the way it balances everything. Ghost of Tsushima I love and I adore and I will always love, but just like Horizon Zero Dawn, I think that's one of those games that I will love, and 10 years from now I will love, in the next decade, and it definitely will be on this list again. But it's a game that I'll still be like, like what? Who's the bad guy again? Like what happened with that again? Because it didn't have the perfect balance. Versus Shadow of the Colossus, I'll never forget. I'll never forget playing that game. It was a religious experience. So for me, out of the two, I think Shadow of the Colossus is better.
All right.
But John and Ralph, both of you were in Ghost of Tsushima. So are you going with?
Well, no, I think I'm gonna change. I mean, I've never played Ghost of Tsushima. I'm just excited about the setting. That's really all it comes down to for me.
Yeah.
So, but I think Josh made really strong points, and it kind of made me look at it a different way. And so I'm gonna change to Shadow of the Colossus now.
Okay. John?
Agreedo.
Alrighty.
No, Agreedo. I have downloaded the game, but have not played it.
It's worth
out,
it, man.
bro.
I know.
John,
only 5 hours, bro.
it's
You'll
worth
beat it in
it.
a day.
It's quick, man. It's quick, but man, it's
You'll remember it.
yeah, you'll remember it for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next part. This will be interesting for some people. Halo 2 Anniversary Edition versus Gears of War 3. I'm just going to give my opinion real quick. It's Halo, but other than that, y'all go. And it's not because Gears of War is bad, just because I never really played Gears of War 3, and I've played most of the Halos, and I love Halo. Anyways, continue.
I agree.
Josh, why don't you go first? Because I think this is going to come down to you and me.
Oof.
I think
Yeah.
because we both played both of these games thoroughly, and you and I are both fans. I think you're a bigger fan of Gears than I am, but I still consider myself a big fan of Gears, and I think we both love both of these universes quite a bit. So I think you should go first and see what your take is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's simple, and it's not really because of I'm coming from bias, but Gears of War 3 is like this decade, and Halo 2 is just a remaster. So like I get it, but at the same time, I think that belongs more in the 2000s decade for me. So
All right.
Yeah, but then Shadow of the
love
Colossus
it.
is a remake. It's a direct remake of the original, and Ghost of Tsushima is the newer game. But we still push we still push Shadow, because even though it is an older game and it is a remake, it still falls within the terms of this like decade generation group.
what I'm saying though is that like that remake is still more powerful than the game,
Hmm.
whereas Halo 2 is still a remaster, but Gears 3 was an original game. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like that remake, I think still that like just pushes more game developers to be inspired this next decade from when it did last decade, more than Tsushima probably will. And I don't know, the Halo 2 anniversary is just a reskin. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it's I don't know. It's
It wasn't enough. It wasn't like a Florida Ground remake. It was more of like a. I think the problem is I think it's more of a. I think that's more of the conversation of remaster versus remake. And
Yeah.
I can see what you're saying.
but I think even like the lineup is different because Halo 2 is amazing, but the remaster didn't really add much. But the remake is bringing a whole new set of fans to Shadow of the Colossus than there was before.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, there's like when we're talking about the games, like everyone already played Halo 2, and Halo 2 Anniversary was just like, oh yeah, this looks nicer now.
Yeah.
Whereas Shadow of the Colossus, you have 3 new fans right here in this video. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That remake is way more impactful than the Halo 2 Anniversary is. And I'm not saying that Halo 2 is bad. I'm just saying
Yeah. Out of those two specific ones, I get it.
right. That's why I'm still going for Gears 3.
You know,
In this,
sorry, go ahead.
no, that's all.
Yeah, you know what? I think from this perspective, I think I will go with Gears 3 as well. If it was like an overall thing that wasn't counting the decade, I would go with Halo 2.
Yeah.
But
Good too.
but yeah, I mean, like the Halo. What I like about the Halo 2 anniversary is that even though it's a reskin, it it's like it looks like a movie. Like the cutscenes from Halo 2 anniversary look like a fucking movie
Yeah.
compared to like the original game. Like when I first saw the first cutscene of Halo 2, it made me feel, even though I've played this story 20 times or more, even though I know every line of dialogue in Halo 2, it still transported me back to the first time I played Halo 2 when I played the anniversary edition. But that being said, if we're looking at it from within a time span, within the decade time span, I'm gonna have to go with Gears 3. I think Gears 3 is, I think, even though I'd pick Halo 2 overall, Gears 3 does stand on its own as a compelling story.
But let me bring up this argument then, and this will
Okay.
be between you and Josh. But the argument, let's just put aside the decade, and let's just put it out as an overall game, because that is this discussion, right? It's game of the decade.
Yeah.
So, as an overall game, mechanics, level design, story, memorabilia, like all of that balanced out, whatever the case may be, what do you think? Which one of the two is technically the better game in the way they are?
Technically,
Or it doesn't have to be technically, but like your own personal opinion. What do you think is, which one of the two do you think is a better game?
Are we setting aside the timeline? Okay.
Yeah, just
All
as a
right.
game as in general.
That's a whole new debate. I already said it. I'm gonna say Halo 2 because like Halo 2 for me, bro. Like, I mean, like, I must have played through the Halo 2 story as a kid at least
It was like 100
20
years
times.
ago.
Yeah, like 20 times, dude. And like I know every line of dialogue in Halo 2. And the Arbiter, to me, is easily in my top 3 favorite video game characters of all time. I love the Arbiter. And I mean, I think the twists and turns that story took you for was wild. Um, and I mean, yeah, dude, it was incredible. Now, I love Gears 3. The thing is, that's the thing though, is that my favorite Gears game is 2. I thought 2 was a more memorable game than 3, but obviously that's way back. That's way back when. But that being said, like 3 had like its really impactful moments. Like Dom died, and that was insane, right? That was incredible. And
Every time.
yeah, and Josh and I were talking about this like a couple days ago. We were talking about like, well, Gears 5 is really good as well. But we both agreed that Dom dying automatically put it above, you know what I mean? Because it was such a crazy story moment, you know what I'm saying? So
It just hurts so much. It still does.
Yeah, it really does. And
Years.
yeah, and Gears 5, like Gears 3 made me feel like there was no hope. You know what I mean? Like, not in a bad way, within the context of the story. Like, when Gears 3 starts, like, when Gears 2 started, they had a city. When Gears 3 starts, they have a boat. Like, all of human civilization
They're on boats.
They had
is on a boat. You know what I'm saying? And, like, everyone's fucked up. Like, everyone's malnourished. Everyone's, like, untidy, you know what I'm saying? Like they just kind of like the Locust stole all the razor blades, so everyone's got like beards and shit. And I mean, yeah, dude, it was, I don't know. Gears 3 is extremely memorable for me, and I still remember a lot of Gears 3, but I still got to give it overall. I still got to give it to Halo 2. But I'm like a diehard Halo fan to like the extreme, so I'm like biased.
I mean, if we take, to me, those are 2 different games of like the decade arguments. So I like the only reason I'm sticking to Gears 3 for this is because it's this decade. But if we're like talking Halo 2 and Gears 2, that's really hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's tough. But for the sake of this whole video, like I have to go with the point of the video is, so I'm gonna go with 3.
I will.
No, but again, to reiterate, the game of the decade, it's still, even though the game did come out prior in the sense of like it's, you know, Halo 2 still remake, it's still its own game. So we're just basing it as it technically, even though it is older, it technically still falls within the same line. So that's why, as the overall game, taking away that fact, that's where the question lies.
I'll give it to Gears 3. I think we can put Gears 3 down.
Okay. Interesting. So, I was gonna say I obviously I've played some Gears. I played mostly Gears 4, right? And but I love Halo. So it's personally, you know, I don't really have much of an opinion on this because I don't know Gears as well. It's just for me that,
like,
you know,
I still would say Halo overall, but yeah, like I kind of agree. Like, I'm willing to, for the sake of expediency, I'm willing to stick within the decade criteria. And
I know your black hole heart right now is cracking a little bit, but you know it's worth the sacrifice, man. It's the push forward. Yeah. John, what do you think?
I was never. I don't know, I'm more of a Halo fan versus a Gears fan, to be completely honest. I didn't get really much into Gears as much as I got into Halo, so I would say Halo in my opinion.
Got you. So even if me and John both go Halo, and or Josh and Ralph both go Gears, or whatever the case may be, I think we can either we can move Gears 3 now, or we can give it a few minutes and go to the next section and move it on. But I think Gears 3, I think it should just move on, because personally for me, and I know it's a whole different thing, but if let's just say, for example, we had Master Chief Collection or whatever the case may be, that's when I think I would go more Halo. But just because of this sense, because Halo 1's my favorite, and only because of nostalgia. That's it. But that being said, we'll move on with Gears of War 3. Next up is going to be very interesting. Is Bloodborne versus Uncharted 4.
Uncharted 4.
I mean, I've never played Bloodborne, so I've only watched Josh play it, so I don't really even have an opinion.
Yeah. Josh?
I'm outvoted. I don't know why you're even asking me.
Because it's still worth knowing your opinion.
You arguably have more weight than any of us, because you're the only one who's played both of them. So
yeah, it'll get stopped later on. So I'm just saving it now. I'm giving it a mercy death.
Okay, so we're going with Uncharted 4.
All right.
That being said, Bloodborne is I only played a little bit of it, but it is a beautifully aesthetic game. It is made from Software, right? Same makers as Dark Souls and Sekiro. It should move on in other aspects if it went against other titles, but just because of where we're standing, Uncharted 4, by all of us, I think we all agree is overall the better game of the two, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad game by any means. All right, so moving on to the next, and now it should be a lot quicker because we've already expressed all of our opinions on these games. Now it's just more of getting to the nitty-gritty. Last of Us 1 versus Assassin's Creed Origins.
I say Last of Us.
Okay, we got one Last of Us.
I say Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed. Josh?
Last of Us.
So I'm the tiebreaker.
Vincent?
All right, so
we know what you're gonna say.
Okay,
bro.
hold on, because the thing is,
do
I want to say my personal favorite? It's going to be Last of Us, but I also have to take into account that this is about the best game of the decade, and Assassin's Creed Origins does deserve a minute of just recognizing that it offers a lot more than The Last of Us does. It's a lot bigger of a game. It basically pushed its genre of its series forward. It is an incredible game, and it deserves to fight a little bit. But I'd say for me personally, I'm probably just gonna go with The Last of Us because of the balance between gameplay and story is so well done in this one. Assassin's Creed Origins, the only thing that makes it lose for me against the two is what Josh said earlier about its roots of Assassin's Creed. It does the new genre great. It does the open world great. But it's not perfect. It has a lot of little things to it. The open world's great. It is massive, but there's so much to do that it's almost a little bit too much, and that kind of throws off that balance of the gameplay of it. And I just feel like The Last of Us, I can go in and play The Last of Us 30 times and I won't get tired. Assassin's Creed Origins, you play it once. Maybe you play it again a few years from now after you forget some of the, most of the stuff, but that's it. Like, you're not playing this. You're not like, it's not like The Last of Us and Uncharted for me. I play it at least twice a year. It's like a movie to me. I can play it in a relatively good amount of time. It's a perfect balance of story, a perfect balance of gameplay, and I enjoy it every single time. Assassin's Creed Origins, I just can't do that every time. So, for me, I think The Last of Us is going to move on, but that doesn't mean Assassin's Creed Origins isn't a phenomenal game. Death Stranding versus Witcher 3. Come on. Are we really going to spend time on this? Like,
Come on.
Anybody oppose?
I say Witcher, right?
Yeah. No. Josh, opposed? No, okay. Death Stranding still a great
Dynamic
game,
beer
but no, absolutely not. Does not touch Witcher. Red Dead Redemption 2 versus Titanfall. 2.
Red Dead.
Red Dead Redemption.
Red Dead Redemption 2. Josh?
Yeah. It doesn't matter. You guys are.
I know, man,
I
but
agree,
like,
but it's already 3 out of 4.
no, I know, but
Well, I
but
agree,
still,
though.
it's still worth because
agree.
let's say, for example, I'm not talking about this specifically, but let's say, for example, it's 3 against 1, and that one can bring up a good enough argument to switch another person. Then it creates a really good debate. So all of our opinions matter whether we're outvoted or not. But in this instance, it don't matter because Red Dead Redemption 2 moving on, just like Arthur Morgan did.
Yes,
Anyways,
sir.
moving on. So this is where it gets interesting, especially for Ralph. Dead Space 2 versus Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
My
Dead
vote's
Space.
Dead Space because I haven't played, Sekiro. So we discussed this already. I haven't played that one. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but John's probably not gonna like it. I'm just gonna state that out there. We all have our type of games that we like, you know. That being said, though, Josh, I already know what your opinion is. I think, and Ralph, you're the one. Josh is probably gonna go with Sekiro. Ralph is the one that's gonna be very interesting because even though me and John both agree on Dead Space. And Josh is on Sekiro, Ralph could either tie it and then we have to fight, or Ralph can go with Dead Space and then Josh has a chance to argue it. But it's all up to your shoulders, man.
You know what, dude? Look. Look.
Oh man.
Look, man. I gotta give it to Dead Space, and I'll tell you why. Sekiro won Game of the Year 2019, and I'm still playing it. I'm playing New Game Plus, and I'm still engaged with it, and I'm still, and I'm in love with that game. The only thing that makes me choose Dead Space over it was that the first, it's not a factor anymore because I already know what to do in the second playthrough. But in the first playthrough, there were instances where I was genuinely annoyed by these very kind of, if I'm not mistaken, typical From Software mechanics, where it's not that they don't hold your hand, but you just kind of don't know where to go from certain points. And you're just kind of expected to know to do things that, in my opinion, you just naturally wouldn't know to do. If you're a From Software veteran, you would. But this being my first From Software game, I just didn't. And I started to get frustrated at certain points where I didn't know where to go or what to do. And I had to ask Josh, or I had to go online. And I don't think you should do that. I think there should be a balance between hand-holding and kind of your own common sense. And I mean, this just kind of, yeah, there were points, and there were only 2 points, I think, that really frustrated me about this. But it still frustrated me nonetheless, and it made me, when I finally got to the enemy, I never quit. Even though I kept getting killed, it was fun, and I kept going. But there were times where finding where those enemies were, and these little things that just kind of got on my nerves about the pathfinding, and yeah, so that's why I gotta give it to Dead Space at the end of the day.
Josh, you have the floor if you want to argue this decision.
I'm gonna argue, and nothing's gonna happen, so it's fine.
I mean, it's still worth hearing your opinion because, you know, even if it doesn't change the minds, it's still something to talk about.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, for me,
who knows? You might change Ralph's opinion.
Yeah, this is a hard decision for me And so you might actually change my mind on this. So I mean, go ahead, bro. Just go ham.
I personally think that the combat is like 100 times better because it's smooth and it's fast, and like you have to think on your toes. And I'm not. I. I it's just like horror is very tropey, where they like throw the same shit at you over and over and over, and I feel like that's not even like an issue in Sekiro at all because you have no fucking idea what's gonna happen, and it's not like it's unlike any other game ever, and it has its complete own identity, and yeah, they have Souls-like mechanics in it, but they like really streamlined it. And to answer the whole thing about like not knowing where to go, that is true, but what they what people like about those games is that you kind of just explore back to old places and things change, and that's how you figure out where you have to go by staying within the game. So if you don't have the patience for that, then yeah, you'd look or ask someone. So I guess it depends on your approach to gaming when you deal with that kind of problem. But I mean, the answers are all in the game though. And the reason like the endings are very difficult to do is because they don't want you to do it the first time like we did. We looked it up because we wanted to get the best ending, but they want you to get a bad ending first or to like get like a certain thing done, and then you're like, oh shit, I could have changed the decision at this point, and then you play it all again, you have fun with all the bosses, but except now you know what to do, and certain other challenges arise, like going charmless, where you have to have perfect deflections, or you can turn on your demon bell and make all the enemies have more health and shit. And
I just did that today.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Sekiro has like way more of an identity than a sequel game, personally.
But I have a question
And-
for you though.
You,
Does Sekiro take too much from the Dark Souls games or its brethren? Is it too similar to its brethren to merely be its own self-identity?
Yeah, it really is different.
Okay.
There's no stamina. There's no like there's bonfires, but the what you're leveling, you don't level actually. You gain skills like
Yeah.
Jedi Fallen Order. So it's not like you're leveling strength. You're leveling this and that. Like they removed most of the RPG elements, and what they really kept was like the same kind of world, like world design.
Oh.
But they made it more linear, so it's like not even. It's only when you want to do like very subtle side quests that it's like hard to figure out. But
you know what? Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
I don't know. I forgot where I was going with that.
Okay. Well, you know what, dude? Like, I actually want to say that, like, I changed my mind. Like, I want to choose Sekiro now
See, I told you.
because as Josh was explaining all this, I was thinking like about the game, and I was thinking about like the specific bosses and like what I could do better next time or what I could have done, or and I was literally playing it before the stream. Like I stopped playing it and then I turned on Skype. You know what I'm saying? So like, and as amazing as Dead Space 2 is, he's right. It is a sequel. It does have a foundation to build on. And I didn't play it. I didn't play through the story a second time. Like I played it through once, and it was amazing, and I still remember it. But I'm going back and I'm playing Sekiro a second time. I'm probably going to play it a third time. And the combat is unlike anything I've ever seen in Sekiro. Like at the end of the day, Dead Space is also inspired by Resident Evil, so the combat in Dead Space is very similar to that. It's like you point and shoot at pseudo zombies, right? But Sekiro is like the sword fighting in it is just out of this world, And when you
What the enemy is gonna be.
you don't know what the enemy's gonna be, and you can think you're good, but you're never good. Like you can master one enemy, but then the game will throw another enemy at you that'll just like make you a bitch and make you feel like you never learned anything at all. And I think Sekiro is also like a lesson in grit and determination, because like you cannot be a casual gamer and play that game.
But
know
you
what I
see,
mean?
that's where I start asking questions, because Sekiro, I think the thing is, Sekiro is a much more technical game. Dead Space is a much more story-driven game. You don't have to be perfect in your shooting to progress in Dead Space. You do have to be perfect in your fighting in order to move in Sekiro, and it does reward skill, which is a very valuable thing in video games. But my thing is, when I played Sekiro, it is fun, but it's fucking frustrating. And I don't feel like I'm having a great time playing it. And that's not saying that it's bad, and that's not saying that I don't have a great time playing it in some aspects. I do. But and yeah, it's kind of it is an excuse, because since it's so technical, it is my fault that I'm not moving forward. And I'm not arguing that I'm a great player at it. I'm not. But then that brings into the problem of, as a video game, it's not as open to players as Dead Space is. Dead Space has great mechanics, and even though it is a sequel, it still justifies itself as a sequel, at least in my opinion. The third one definitely doesn't, but the second one does justify itself. And it's the balance of gameplay, it's the balance of story, it's the replayability, and its ability to be able to allow virtually anyone to be able to play it, and to, even though it is a horror game, still be able to really enjoy the playthrough. Versus Sekiro, you really got to put in everything you have and every attention like every bit of like brain power into putting into this game, and even then you'll fail. And even though that is great because it does reward you in skill, it for me, it's not the funnest game in the world. I don't strive. Like, I do want to play it out of the competition side of me, where I'm like, no, I need to get good, and that's great. That's great that it does that. But it's not a game that I'm like, I can't wait to play that game and really like enjoy its story or enjoy what it, like, everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, for me, I think it's a great looking game and it's a great fighting mechanic game. But I have no idea what the story is going on with it. At least personally. And like Ralph said, it's very tough on you, because I ran around for like an hour and I didn't know where the fuck I was going. I didn't know what the hell I was supposed to be doing at any point in time. Versus Dead Space, like, even though it is linear, I can jump in and play it even at the hardest difficulty. Yeah, it's going to be hard, but I can get through it and I can enjoy myself and play it, and I know what's going on in the story. I know how the gameplay mechanics work. So for me, it's just a little bit more balanced.
Now, the question, you were talking about accessibility. Now, Sekiro sold 2 million copies within the first 10 days of its release.
Mm-hmm.
So that raises the question of, if your concern is that it's not accessible to as many people, if we're saying that within the first 10 days it was considered like fun by at least 2 million people, I mean, how does that figure in? Like, how does that? Because
I bought the game, but I haven't beat it. So just because it sold a bunch of copies doesn't mean that all those people played through the whole thing. And so,
that's true.
But I can guarantee out of the 4 of us, 3 of us have played Dead Space 2, and 3 of us have beat it. You know,
that's true. That's true.
So that's where the problem that I have is, again, I'm and this is my own opinion, but I'm just trying to balance out. I think Sekiro overall is an amazing game. It is. And I think mechanically it is an amazing game, but is it balanced in everything it offers? Is it balanced in its story, in its gameplay, in its level design? Is it balanced in everything, or is it really strong in a few in a good amount, but weak in a few things? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I have another question. Why does it have to be balanced in everything? Why can't it just be really good at the certain things? Like Shadow of the Colossus doesn't have a story.
I mean,
Barely.
and we have
Barely,
to
yeah.
consider the objectives of the developers. The
Yeah,
developers
like they're-
set out to make an incredibly challenging game, specializing in these things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it accomplished. And the difference is that I've beaten both of these games, and Sekiro still leaves me in like a state of wonder.
mm,
Like I'm still like the combination of the music, the combat, the environment, the graphics, the sheer variety of enemies. Like it still has me like, I don't know, like it has me completely immersed. And I'm a shinobi in this fantasy Japan world. And it also, I mean, it won Game of the Year 2019, and another, which means that out of all the games that came out of in that year, this game was deemed the best. Yeah. And Dead Space didn't win Game of the Year 2011 or 2012 when it came out. So, I mean, I really think, I think Sekiro just kind of brings something completely unique to the table, and it's just an overall incredible game that still has me thinking and still has me going back to it.
mm-hmm.
Now, that's the thing, is that with me, I crave these challenges. Like I play games on the hardest difficulty right off the bat, and to me, this game kind of like scratches that itch.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, like I still gotta give it to.
So just to answer Josh's question, the reason why I'm saying balanced is because that's how I'm judging. That's how I'm personally judging each game, because you can't look if we're doing that, if we're not balancing it, then the problem is that then we're comparing two vastly different things. Again, if we're looking at, for example, earlier when we were talking about Bloodborne and Uncharted 4. Like, they're completely different in every possible way. If we were comparing Titanfall 2 and Uncharted 4, Uncharted 4 does the story way better, and it has a multiplayer, but Titanfall is way better in multiplayer, like in every possible aspect. But the balance of of what those games can offer and the way and how they built everything out for that game, there's a balance to it, and that's what I was bringing up earlier, and that's why like. I'm trying to. I'm gonna be honest. I want to give it to Sekiro just because like the competition in me is like I understand it. Like I get the love for the game. I get it, and I think technically is a brilliant game. It's just for me. It's not. It offers great technicality. It offers great fighting mechanics, but the story, I don't really know what the hell's going on. I don't really care for the story as much. I just want to get to the next boss and be able to fight him, you know? And for me, that's kind of a lack versus Dead Space. For me, like I don't have that issue at all.
Well, at one point in Dead Space, about the halfway point, they do start to throw the same kind of enemies at you.
Yeah.
And I did start to feel like, okay, I'm about to fight these babies now. The babies.
Yeah. Well, they swarm you and shit.
I need to get through this hallway, and it got to a point where I started feeling like
felt like it was repetitive.
The enemies started to be obstacles to Isaac's story. Like I was really interested in Isaac's story, and it did get to a point where like the levels I felt started to not like extremely, but they started to. It felt kind of forced sometimes. Like it felt like they had to throw enemies at you before you could get to the next story progression part. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And at this point, I'm nitpicking because it's still a great game overall. But those are kind of things, if we're talking about balance, that's when I think the balance of Dead Space kind of falters a little.
But then in Sekiro, it's ridiculously hard. Like, yeah, it's great skill, and you got to get used to it, and you got to play it. But for me, like, I feel like all it has to offer is the enemies. I don't see anything else that it has to offer for me. You know, like I play it and I'm like, this is great. I love the atmosphere and I love fighting the bosses, but there's nothing else that brings me into the game. You know, like in Dead Space, yeah, you do get, and every game has repetitiveness, and like in Dead Space, yeah, the enemies start becoming a little bit of an obstacle, but it never makes me want to stop playing the game, and it never becomes such a big issue that it becomes like a huge negative for me. It's just like,
I mean, that comes down to the kind of gamer you are, because everything you said is a negative about Sekiro is not a negative for me.
okay,
In fact, it's a positive, because every time I died and every time I failed at an enemy, like I never got frustrated to the point where I got frustrated. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a human.
yeah,
But I never got frustrated to a point where I was like, fuck this game, I'm out of here. Like, I got frustrated and I'd be like, all right, where did I fuck up?
yeah,
This is where I messed up. All right, this is where I gotta time it better. Blah 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 blah. Like it always kept me enthralled, and I always wanted to get better. So like, if the goal of the game is to have you hyper focused and just kind of really into this high paced combat, then I think that's exactly what it did.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
yeah. So Josh, you see that your opinion matters?
Huh?
You see that your opinion matters
Oh, yeah.
because you were outnumbered 3-1, and then now you switch Ralph, and then now we're in this constant back and forth. I will say this: Sekiro does make me want to go back to get better, but it doesn't
Yeah.
make me enjoy my time playing it. I don't. Like it's the same thing of any other game that I've ever played where I hate the boss. And like, I remember when playing Kingdom Hearts 2, for example, fighting against Roxas, and like he's just the most fucking annoying piece of shit ever. And like when I beat him, like I felt so overjoyed. But like I don't want to go through that again. Like, yeah, do I want to like maybe get better? Sure, but like I don't want to go through that again. And I feel that in Sekiro. Like I'm like I don't want to go against the drunkard or whatever his name is, or the stupid ogre. Like I want to get better at it, and sure, when I get better, I'll fight him or whatever. But like, I don't have that drive for it. But let's do this because we're going at 2.5 hours now. Let's
Holy shit.
for the first time. Let's skip that one and go back to it. Maybe I'll change my opinion, and let's go to God of War versus Doom Eternal.
Doom Eternal. I'm gonna take a piss. Be right back.
God of War.
God of War.
War for me.
God of War. All day. But
3 out
he
of 4.
needs to take a piss, so now we need to wait because I need to hear his opinion. It sucks, man, because I do want to push Sekiro forward. I do, but it's just like I don't know.
I wish I would have played it.
This is the thing for me though. Like, if you think about games in general, like chess or baseball or anything, like there doesn't have to be a story, but everyone always wants to get better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like Sekiro achieves that game, like that quality of a game better.
Yeah,
Even though I've
I
never
guess,
played
but
Dead Space,
then the
but-
same thing goes of like, then The Last of Us 2 is technically a better game because mechanically it's way better, and you're able to fight in a much more freer way and have the options of fighting, and the combat's a lot better, and technically, mechanically, game-wise, it's better, but the story's not
Then
great.
what?
You know, so like
All right.
it's
Did y'all decide on God of
Yeah.
War?
Yeah.
yeah. You're more than welcome to share your opinion.
Dude, I mean, like, I played both of them, and I just had, the bottom line is I had more fun in Doom. The bottom line for me is that I thought Doom was more fun, and just a little bit more engaging overall. But yeah, that's just me. But I'm fine with giving it to God of War. So.
Okay, so chilling. We're going with God of War on this one. Let's go. Okay, so Fallout New Vegas versus Skyrim.
Fallout New Vegas.
Skyrim.
I've only played Skyrim, so I'm sorry. I can't really vote.
Yeah. John?
Wait, what
Skyrim
so
versus
Skyrim,
Fallout New
Sky-
Vegas. Emily's like, someone tell Raphael.
I'd say Skyrim because I haven't played Fallout.
Yeah.
Man, like I gotta say, dude, like I have to go with New Vegas because again I played both of them thoroughly, and New Vegas pretty much the same thing I said last time. New Vegas is just such a like Skyrim is like a microcosm compared to what New Vegas is. Skyrim is like a backyard compared to like New Vegas's like nation.
But does that
Know
make
what
it
I
a
mean?
better
Like,
game?
yes, because they're both from the same developer. Well, I mean, New Vegas is like from Obsidian, but I mean, like they feel kind of similar in terms of mechanics. They are similar in terms of mechanics, but like there's just like there's more to do in New Vegas as opposed to Skyrim. Like I would do everything there is to do with Skyrim, and it's true. I'd start again as like a mage, or like I'd be like, all right, let me see what would happen if I did this as like a ranger, or like let me see what would happen if I did this as like a thief. But like I would still just be finding out just like half of what New Vegas had to offer in the time it took for me to beat all of Skyrim. And it's still the same level of engagement, the same level of like intensity. It's basically like I feel like New Vegas, if you like Skyrim and you went to New Vegas, obviously Skyrim is more recent, but like it's just it's similar mechanically, but New Vegas again just has so much more lore, story. The story in Skyrim is kind of whatever. Like, I mean, the main story in Skyrim with Alduin and these people, I mean, it's like, you gotta admit, it's like kind of, it's not super memorable. You know what I mean? Like, you beat it and you're like, okay. But like, Skyrim story makes you feel like there were real consequences. New Vegas makes you feel like there are real consequences. And Emily just said it has a deeply intrinsic story of bloody survival in a crumbling world with complex characters that have untold connections and opinions that can be changed entirely based on who you interact with. And that's extremely true. The ending and the consequences for New Vegas are so different based on the decisions you make. And that was the first game I played where I felt like every little decision I made had colossal implications. And Skyrim, I didn't get that. Despite it being a more modern game, in Skyrim, it kind of ends the same way. Like, you kill Alduin, and Skyrim is safe, and that's it. Yeah. And you kill dragons. But New Vegas makes the weight of your decisions painful to you every step of the way, no matter what you do. Like, I've done a playthrough where I've sided with the NCR.
Ew.
I know. Josh, I'm kind of biased, so I tell Josh my point of view on it. So yeah. And I've done a playthrough where I've sided with Caesar's Legion. And I've done a playthrough where I've said fuck both of y'all and just killed everybody and raised an army of robots and conquered the land myself. Like, that's just the land. That's just those are three completely different endings that you can get, and just exploring the world each and every time will take you through like weeks and weeks of just nonstop adventuring and shit. And this is kind of wild, dude. Like, I don't even think there's a comparison for me personally.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say I just personally, like, even when I played it a few years back, the little bit I played on your computer, I just couldn't get into it. I just didn't like the mechanics. And it sucks because it's one of those things where, like, I wish I could because I've heard nothing but amazing things. And again, everything we're saying is opinion based. And just in my personal experience, I just didn't have a good time playing it. I didn't like the mechanics. I didn't like the VAT system on it at the time. Again, my opinion may change because I did play Fallout 4 and I did enjoy it. And I got used to the system. So maybe if I went back to New Vegas, now that I understand how Fallout mechanics work, I might like it more. But I personally wouldn't. I like Skyrim more. Because it is more simple, and you do have a lot more options when it comes to Fallout New Vegas. I just think we all played Skyrim, we all enjoyed Skyrim, we all jumped back to Skyrim, and if we're talking about game of the decade, Skyrim has lasted longer than anything else on this list. And just with that, I think personally, I think Skyrim should move on. But is anybody else change opinions, or can we move on from this one?
I still think, I mean, like, I'm gonna give it to.
You can stay with New Vegas if you're outvoted. That's fine.
I'm gonna
that's
stay.
what you feel.
I'm gonna stay with New Vegas in my heart, but I know I'm outvoted. I think fundamentally, in the bottom of my heart, I think Fallout New Vegas is a single way, shape, or form to Skyrim, but I'm outvoted, so I will. I'll acquiesce to the.
So Emily did comment, if we were looking at games as a whole, like Vincent said, New Vegas does everything Skyrim does and does it better. I'm not going to argue that, especially because I never played New Vegas. Again, this is just from the four of us. This is our opinions. And whenever somebody has played the game, they do have the option of explaining it and having people change their minds. And with that, I will subside and I will go with Sekiro in moving forward. Because the more I think about it, even though I like Dead Space more, and I would play Dead Space way more than I probably ever would Sekiro. Sekiro made its game to be the way it's very technical. It's very built to reward you on skill, and it accomplished that in an amazing way. And you're right, it did win for 2019, right? Game of the year.
Yeah.
It won Game of the Year for a reason. It is an amazing game. It did sell a shit ton of copies, and it did accomplish what it wanted to do. So I will subside and move Sekiro forward. But again, while Fallout New Vegas might offer a lot more, I just think we also have to take into account, not only our opinions, but also just overall playability. All four of us have played Skyrim. All four of us have completed it. All four of us loved it. Some of us played New Vegas and loved it. Some of us played it and didn't love it. So it's just, in this scenario with us four, Skyrim just wins that off of that basis.
I'll give it to Skyrim. I think New Vegas is a better game in every way, but I will give it to Skyrim for the sake of me being outvoted in this scenario.
Alrighty. So we are moving on to the next part, which will be interesting for Josh. Gears of War 3 versus, and it will be, very interesting for all too. Gears of War 3 versus Uncharted 4.
Ouch.
I was Uncharted.
Ouch.
I played Uncharted.
I'm very interested in hearing Josh's opinion on this.
Give me like an hour.
Well, we've been at this for almost 3, so.
I know. I don't know. I mean, I'm outvoted anyway, but yeah, I don't know.
You don't want to.
I'm not sure.
I'm definitely going Uncharted 4, and that's just to put my opinion out there.
Yeah, that's natural. Ralph,
dude,
you know what I'm feeling right now.
I don't know, dude. I just don't know. Like, I mean, like
Gears of War 3 is one of the very, very few games that makes me cry.
Yeah, I know. I know you're gonna pick Gears 3.
But I don't know if I should though, because Uncharted 4 is also good.
It is also good, but like,
Coming back.
What does your heart say? Like, what is your?
I mean,
What does your soul say?
my nostalgia goes back to Gears 3 because I played that first.
You
So
know,
that's always gonna have a special place in my heart.
you know what, dude? Like,
But its cover based system is way better.
which
Like
one's cover
taking by
based?
Gears 3.
Yeah. You know what?
But I don't know. It's hard. It's hard.
It is really hard. I'm a newcomer to Uncharted. Like I played literally all the Uncharted games, but one at your house.
Yeah.
But I mean, I played Gears 1 when it came out. I played Gears 2 when it came out, and I played Gears 3. I played every single Gears game except for the one that shall not be named when it came out. And
Which one? I don't even know what you're talking about.
the one where you play as a dude, I forgot. I can't even. I don't even remember the one that came.
Yeah, it's best to forget it.
Yeah, you know which one I'm talking about. And I mean, like,
It doesn't exist though.
yeah, I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, dude. Like, Gears' story took me for like a hell of an emotional like ride. Like, that's not to say Uncharted's didn't, because you know how much I like Sully,
Sully's the best.
and how much I
Yeah.
don't like Sam. But that being said, like, I don't know, dude. Like,
We're gonna be at an impasse for this one.
yeah, dude, this is hard for me because like they're both such great games, and if this was, I don't know, dude, this is difficult.
You like go and then you take yourself back.
Yeah.
That's hard.
I can't come to a decision on this. I mean,
It's
I'll tell
hard.
you right now, if it was between Gears 2 and Uncharted 4, it would go to Gears 2. But it. Man, I don't know. This is hard, dude.
I'll go with Uncharted
I mean,
because it's not the best Gears in the series, but Uncharted 4 is the best Uncharted.
you know what? That's a fact.
Yeah, good. So
That's
you
a
can
fact.
agree. You can. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gears 3 is Gears 3 isn't the best Gears, but Uncharted 4 is the best Uncharted, like Josh said. So
We didn't do Shadow of the Colossus, right?
Oof.
I gotta say, Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Shadow of the Colossus brought something completely new overall, things we've already talked about. And at the end of the day, Arkham Knight is not the third, but the fourth game. Because remember, there was Arkham Origins,
Yeah.
which was a flop. And so they've had a lot of time to perfect this and make it better. And what comes out at the end is an amazing game. But people in Shadow of the Colossus did this in their first try. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna vote bias because I haven't played Shadow, so.
Five, six, yeah.
yep.
Oh yeah. Right.
Nope. Khan does not want to say shit.
Sounds good. All right.
I just want to say one thing for me specifically, like Shadow of the Colossus, like it's revolutionary and still relevant today. But there's gonna come a certain point where I'm gonna vote it out, like because it's not really from this decade. But I think so far it's carried its importance this far. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I just
yeah,
want to
yeah,
say
yeah.
that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Remaster. It's not. Yeah. And just really quick, they did add this feature that the original game did not have. So and like I've never seen it in any other game either, where it's called Mirrored World, where once you beat the game, the camera flips
Oh
and
yeah.
the map is backwards. He's lefty, like everything is backwards, and that's just like that's crazy to me because it's like you have to rewire your brain. You have to use your brain backwards. So even though it's an old game and it's a remake, like it's still fucking with us. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just wanted to say that because I don't know how many people know that. Rough waters.
Vincent, it looks like you're having some audio issues 'cause Emily can't hear you.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear you
Yeah.
clearly.
My
Witcher 3.
vote is Last of Us.
I'm saying Witcher 3.
Witcher 3. Witcher 3 all day, every day. Witcher 3. Nope.
Yeah.
Of most games.
Yeah. We're not even talking about the DLC either. It's adding a whole new map. It's a whole other game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. You'll remember it.
Yeah.
Bro. Vanilla.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Even bro, even the fucking the unrealistic parts of Witcher 3 are memorable. Like how he puts everything in his pocket. Like even that's memorable, dude. So I mean,
or Roach. Don't forget about Roach. Speaking of unrealistic.
oh yeah, Vincent's favorite character. All right.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Skyrim.
My vote's God of War because that's the only one I've played.
God of War.
Okay. I'm outvoted. I'll go with God of War. Okay. Shadow of the Colossus.
Uncharted 4.
I'm trying to see how far it's gonna.
While
I
Josh
think
simmers on that, I'll be right back.
I also have to do that. This is the thing. Like it is. Yeah,
But-
I've been holding it.
Breaking the seal.
I think I have at this point is where it doesn't take Shadow of the Colossus like it's inspirational and awesome, but it doesn't represent the decade more than Uncharted 4. Like even as awesome as it is, and I think it's even more like I think it's more of an inspiration than Uncharted 4 will ever be. But at the same time, like it is not really this decade. So I think now is a good time to switch over. It carried it this far. Yeah.
Well, I have 2 games I gotta
What's up?
play.
No, you have many, bro.
Yeah, I know.
I changed my mind. I want to do Uncharted.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Oh.
Yeah, and and Uncharted for me, like Uncharted for the story, the moments in the story were very memorable. Um, I like I don't know, a lot of things factor in for Uncharted for me. Like there's the obvious like archaeological aspect of it that I'm biased toward because I love history and stuff like that. Um, and like Uncharted Force focuses entirely on like pirate lore, and I'm descended from a pirate, and I mean like, but also like, I mean the story, the characters are done so well. The characters are written so well in Uncharted. Like I don't like Sam. Like I don't like Sam at all. But I understand why Sam does what he does. I understand his point of view. I just decide to disagree with it at the end. But I'm still like, you know what? Like I can see why he would want to do this. Do I still think he's a piece of shit? Yeah. But who's to say I wouldn't make the same decision if I was in his shoes? You know what I'm saying? All I'm saying on that, all right, is that if if we were all in a group and we were all on this quest and you guys had to like leave me in a prison to rot for 15 years and I finally got to leave, the first thing I wouldn't do is lie to your faces. That's all I'm saying. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Red Dead Redemption 2 for me.
Red Dead.
Sorry. I've been defending Sekiro like a valiant soldier, and I still think it's an amazing game. But dude, like, I mean, I have to. It's still a great game, but I gotta give the slight edge, and it's a slight edge to Red Dead. Josh,
I voted.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Half orange. Yep.
right? That's
My
Yikes.
voice is dead.
Yikes.
But now y'all got you people are gonna kill yourselves now. So I'm just gonna sit here.
I'm definitely not gonna kill myself, but maybe you two are.
Josh, what do you got to say?
That Geralt wins.
Okay. Vincent, what do you have to say?
I should get now, dude.
I mean, that's the point, is that it gets harder as you go along.
And combat.
I'm here for money.
Absolutely.
Money.
And the facial animations.
You know, yeah, like for me, like the depth of the quests in Witcher 3, I'm pretty sure everyone can agree is better, is superior to Red Dead. But I find Arthur Morgan to be an infinitely more compelling and realistic and just, I don't know, just overall more impressive character than Geralt, in my opinion. And man, I don't know. It's very, it's basically comes down to, I don't know, man. It's hard. I can't even make words.
Vincent, I think your mic is out again.
That's weird because I hear him perfectly fine. So it's weird that like
Yeah, I'm
Y'all-
hearing him too.
some.
I just gotta
It's weird.
check. I don't know, but I don't hear you on the stream.
Oh, on the stream.
Yeah, on the stream. Hold on. I hear you on the stream. I don't hear you on the stream. I hear you now talking, but I don't hear you on the stream.
Yeah, Emily was having the same problem. I don't know, dude. Like, I feel like Red Dead 2 focused in on key themes and storytelling like it meant to. Personally, I find the whole notion of like, I like westerns a lot. and I really like the whole like these outlaws being irrelevant. I really like the notion of like, everything you spent your whole life doing one thing, and that thing doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean? You've lived your whole life this way, and all of that means nothing because cars were invented. And it kind of like it brings to light the fact that the simplest changes to the world can have this tremendous impact. And even though even though The Witcher to me overall kind of like was a success in all the little stories it tried to tell, I thought Red Dead 2 was incredibly impactful in the one story it tried to tell. If that makes sense.
I'm trying to see if the audio is working now. Hey, John, are you watching the stream or no?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So when it comes back, let me know. But just to voice, I think overall I'm gonna go with The Witcher.
Okay.
And the only reason I think I'm gonna go with The Witcher is because overall, it there's nothing about The Witcher that for me is a negative. Red Dead Redemption 2, although it is virtually amazing, there are a few things like although I love the way it feels when you're playing. Sometimes it feels a little like dragging, like the character, like when you're playing around, like when you're walking around. Sometimes like you run into things and you fall, and like you're kind of like a rag doll.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now, John, on the stream? Okay, perfect. So I feel like sometimes it's just the mechanics of the character itself. It's kind of off, and this is really nitpicking because like usually I wouldn't really care about little things like that. But if we're really getting into the finer details. Red Dead Redemption 2, I can't really remember much of the side quests. I can remember a few of them, but I can't remember them the way I remember Witcher. And although I think Red Dead tells a much tighter story, The Witcher's story was so well done for its genre that and the gameplay and everything else, I think I'm gonna go with The Witcher.
All right, I'll submit to The Witcher.
We're all good on The Witcher? God, that one hurts, man.
Yep.
It is what it is.
All right, boys. God of War versus Uncharted 4 for
Uncharted.
the semifinals.
Uncharted.
Damn, I've learned. I mean, interesting. Like about the stream is that I've learned a lot about my own gaming tastes.
Yeah, right?
Like we've learned a lot about each other and ourselves.
I think this is awesome because the fact that we're all about to agree on a game of the decade and the discussions we've brought, and like it opened up my eyes too when it comes to like Sekiro, for example, and stuff like that. So it's awesome, but enough. But we got to get through it. God of War versus Uncharted 4. John, you say Uncharted 4. Ralph, you say Uncharted 4.
Yeah, Uncharted 4.
Josh.
God of War.
God of War.
Vincent?
I've-
Oh my god.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why God of
Dude,
War.
I've learned that God of War is actually quite low on my.
Well, remember, you didn't play it fully. You just did straight story. So you had a very...
Did you finish it?
You had like a thinner...
Yeah, I finished the
He had-
story.
You had like a thinner slice of cheesecake than we did.
Yeah.
I don't like cheesecake, so that's a bad example.
Uncharted 4 is phenomenal. And if we're going off of what I said earlier, this is where it gets tough because both God of War and Uncharted 4 both have almost perfectly balanced aspects of gameplay, level design, acting, memorable, everything. So this is why it's at the semifinals. The reason why I'm going with God of War over Uncharted 4, which Uncharted 4 is one of my favorite games of all time, is mostly because not only does God of War have a great story, but mechanically it's far beyond Uncharted. Uncharted is very simple mechanics, especially when it comes to shooting. It's the best climbing mechanics in any game ever, and that includes every Assassin's Creed. It has the best climbing mechanics, period. And I will argue with anyone till the ends of the earth on that. But other than that, the shooting mechanics, they're not the best. And other than that, like you're like the puzzles are great. The acting's amazing. The story's amazing. It pushes you through. It's great. But God of War also has a great story. And God of War also has side quests. And it's also an open linear world. And it's also phenomenal fighting mechanics. And it's got great climbing mechanics. And it's got great everything. And for me, like, I'll play Uncharted 4 for the story all day. Like, I watch it like a movie. I'm chilling. But I don't feel like I want to play Uncharted 4 on hard. I don't feel like I need to. Like, it really is not going to make that big of a difference for me. But in God of War, like, I'm going there not only to enjoy the story, I'm there to enjoy the gameplay. And for me, it's much more satisfying. So that's why I think God of War should move on to these two.
All right.
But this is tied. It's me and Josh and God of War. You and Ralph on Uncharted 4, so we need to come with a decision.
Dude, like, honestly, I find Uncharted to have overall a more compelling story and more compelling characters and even more compelling gameplay. Like, I felt more of a rush playing Uncharted 4's gunplay, like, and combat than God of War. And that might be heresy, but who knows? But,
A little bit.
but
Yeah, and I think even the little, I mean, look, I didn't finish God of War. Whatever. I think I think it's a great game. I didn't get attached to it as much as I did with Uncharted. I mean, from the beginning, playing the PlayStation 1, playing, Crash Bandicoot, those little details from going to the store and like getting the apple and feeding the lemur, and the lemur fucking follows you around, to the ending where he has a daughter, and the daughter finds all of his treasures and stuff. That kind of leaves you like, oh shit, there might be another one.
yeah.
Now he has a daughter, and the daughter is following in his footsteps. So where the hell is this going?
I mean, for me, it comes down to, like, I don't know what it is about it, but, like, I've played through both games once. Like, I played through the God of War story once, and I played through the Uncharted 4 story once. And for some reason, I can recall every single mission in detail in Uncharted 4, but God of War is, like, slightly more of a blur. It's, like, slightly less memorable to me. So that's why I
Yeah,
that being said, I mean, like, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't remember who said it, but like having the complex of like this guy's. I think we had it with God of War. It was the argument. Essentially, Nathan is done with this treasure hunting, and then all of a sudden his dead brother comes along and is like, "Hey,
Yeah.
help me fix this, or I'm gonna die."
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, he has to come out of retirement, doing what he does best. Older, a little older from the last, from the third one.
It's kind of similar to God of War, though.
So
And The Godfather Part 3.
The Godfather Part 3.
but I don't know. I feel like it's almost, relatable in a way. Like, I don't know. My vote's Uncharted 4. Even if we're outvoted, I think Uncharted 4 for me was a overall better story, and yeah, the dynamics are badass in God of War and the fighting scenes and all that. But I think Uncharted overall.
I found the thing is, I found the relationships between the characters more compelling in Uncharted as well than in God of War. Because in God of War you only have the father and the son, but in Uncharted you have brother to brother, you have husband and wife, you have sort of like mentor and mentee kind of relationships that are all fleshed out really well.
Yeah.
And I felt, I felt like I was being compelled in all these different directions. Like Josh can probably tell you, like, while I was playing the game in his house, I was always like, oh shit, what's his brother gonna do? Or like, oh shit, what's Sully gonna think? Or oh, you're doing this, you're lying to your wife. What are you doing? Like, I was always being pushed in these different directions, and
Yeah.
and I was always, my mind was always busy with the
And not
story.
including the flashbacks. The flashbacks when you were a
Exactly.
kid.
Exactly.
You got very. I got very attached to Nathan and Sam and Sully and the
Yeah.
wife and all that because I would say I've never had a big brother effect, but like I would imagine like, damn,
Yeah.
like I was adopted. My big brother left me. Like I'm gonna want to go with him on his
Yeah,
motorcycle.
Exactly.
Do whatever the fuck we need to do.
Exactly.
So
I'll be right back, but yeah, that's basically what
Gotta pee again.
God damn, again? Jesus Christ.
He needs a nurse, man. Yeah, it's tough for me, man, because I love Uncharted 4. I adore Uncharted 4, and I can almost recite the entire game. I'm just trying. Like, it's hard, man, because I think this falls into almost the same thing of what we were talking about earlier with like Sekiro or Shadow of the Colossus. Uncharted 4 was out to make a cinematic story game where gameplay mechanics were made to push the story forward. And they accomplished that. But then God of War came in and rebuilt the entire series of God of War and took an existing fandom and said, listen, we're going to change virtually every single thing that you loved about the original series, and you're still going to love it. And they did it. And and not only does the fighting and the gameplay mechanics push the story forward, it also is great on its own, and so that's those two things. It just brings me to consider that God of War overall is a better game, but it's tough, man.
I don't know. I think having a game that's relatable is more enjoyable.
But does that make it better?
In my opinion,
because
because then I don't know. I would say yeah. Because you're looking at God of War as the fighting, like it's awesome. The dynamics are awesome. But is it? I don't know.
Because the thing is, in Uncharted 4, right? Here's the thing. Uncharted 4, you have existing characters that you've built upon a long time. And Uncharted 4, you can play it without playing the original 3. And that's great. And it has a lot of characters to support it. The thing about God of War is that you don't have a lot of characters. You have Kratos. You have Atreus. You have the dwarves, and you have like some of the other gods, Boldor and I forgot Thor's children's name too.
Oh yeah.
But the core of the story is between father and son, and from Uncharted you're playing as brothers who love each other, to brothers who love each other, to brothers who get mad at each other, to brothers who love each other. And in God of War you have a father and son who they both love each other, but they both resent each other, and you go through this journey to the point of real character development into where Kratos, this god of war, this man who has murdered I don't know how many and has gone through the shit that he's gone through, including killing his own father and father trying to kill him, now is learning how to empathize and be a good father to his son. And Atreus is learning more about his lineage and his bloodline. He's learning more about his father and learning more of why his father is the way that he is. And I don't know, it's just that story, like it's not only impactful, but it's incredible that they can make that happen with just two characters, the same way Last of Us did with Joel and Ellie. But Uncharted, it's amazing, and I love the game, and it does almost everything that it wants to do perfectly. But again, like if I'm choosing the better game, I think God of War is the better game. So let's get back to that one. Let's go into the following one, and the reason why also is because I've also got to take into account, and Josh, you're more than welcome to argue that if you disagree. But I said the same point earlier, where I said, all of us have played it or whatever. We've all played God of War. We've all played Uncharted. We've all beat Uncharted. Not all of us beat all of us beat God of War, whatever the case may be. But not all of us enjoyed God of War as much as we did Uncharted. But we all love Uncharted. So I have to take that into account. But I'm gonna take a minute. So let's go into Witcher 3. I'm sorry. Oh no, we can't. We have to choose.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Josh, what do you think? Are you sticking with God of War?
My choice is Witcher 3 either way.
Okay.
So if you want to change mine to Uncharted,
I don't know. I see Uncharted as again, it's relatable. I think to me it's a little bit more relatable because since Nathan has a daughter, like I see it as holy shit. I think it'd be so cool if I was a treasure hunter and I had a beach house and my daughter was to find all the shit that I did. Like I think like damn, you have no idea the shit I've been through. Like this is what you want to do? You don't even know half the shit.
Exactly. Like, look, for me, Witcher's gonna be both of these. I'm in the same boat as Josh. Like, Witcher's gonna be both of these. But if I'm gonna choose the second place, it's gonna be Uncharted 4.
So I will say that as a general consensus, we're going to move on Uncharted 4.
okay.
And I think as a general consensus, well, not general, because John's probably going to be against. But I Witcher 3 is the better
I haven't
game.
played Witcher.
Yeah, but
I haven't played Witcher 3. Right now, I'm definitely gonna play Witcher 3.
After all
And Shadow of Colossus,
Yes.
So I could very much say I will be happy with Uncharted 4 being second place in this battle of a game of the decade.
so 3 hours, 29 minutes later, and a lot of back and forth and arguing and opinion changing and all this different type of stuff. I think we have all agreed 100% that The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is the best game of the decade. Not only of the decade, but it's the best game of this generation, and the best out of all the games that became part of this generation due to remasters and remakes. Anybody have any last words to say or anything you want to bring up before we end this stream?
Well, you said earlier to make the one that we thought would win,
Yes.
and then the runner-up. You said
Yes. No, just I wanted you guys to write down the game that you think is gonna win, and the game that you personally think is the best game of the decade.
I thought either Last of Us or Uncharted would win, but I thought probably Uncharted was number one because I have not been educated on The Witcher 3.
You will be soon.
For me, I assumed The Witcher would win. That's what I thought would win. But my personal favorite, for me personally, is a tie between Red Dead Redemption 2 and Uncharted 4.
Josh?
I thought it was gonna be between like Last of Us and Uncharted to be number one. And my personal choice is that I don't have a choice because I can never do this.
Well, you did, and we're here. And mine was the game I thought would win is The Witcher 3. And yeah,
Really?
I originally, when I was writing this list, I kept thinking back, like I kept thinking about all of them, and I was like, man, like these games are like, we've had a hell of a generation, a hell of a 10 years of games. And I just kept looking at it. Like, the one game I keep coming back to that I'm like, there's nothing here that really like is at this level, was The Witcher 3. Every time I try to think of a game, I was like, oh yeah, this, like Red Dead Redemption 2, yeah. But then I started thinking about, I keep thinking about The Witcher. I keep thinking about everything it did. And I start remembering all of the side quests and all of the things you did and all the customization, like just the availability and the detail to it. So I started thinking about it and I was like, yeah, I think with us four, I think we would all agree on that. But the game I personally wanted to win was God of War. And mostly because God of War is that balance between linear, open world, story, mechanics, level design, gameplay, acting, just everything about it for me was almost a perfect balance. But that being said, Witcher 3 is definitely like, honestly, like if we could pit Witcher 3 against almost any game in this list by itself, we could have just done that, and The Witcher 3 probably would have won every single one.
Maybe, yeah.
And I'm saying that for real. If we look back at this for 2 seconds, right? If we go Witcher 3 versus Doom Eternal,
Witcher 3.
If we're going Witcher 3 versus Sekiro, like, yeah, I understand there's a lot of love for Sekiro, but I think you guys would agree that Witcher 3 is an overall better game. Maybe.
Yeah.
Josh could probably argue that. The what?
It has a lot more to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sekiro is like, it's hard and everything, but that's it. Like the challenge and the relief and like the joy of beating the boss, and yeah, the story very hidden subtly and like in the world, but there's just so much more in The Witcher. So much more content.
Yeah.
So much more story, so much more everything. And yeah, the combat might not be as good, but like everything is there.
But it's still great. The combat's still fun. I don't know why people complained when it first came out about the combat. I was like, I thought it was fine. Like,
it's actually, the developer said they were inspired by Dark Souls. That's the funny thing.
interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting.
But I think I'm glad we were able to do this, guys. This was very interesting. And I think, like Ralph said earlier, this brought out a lot of our opinions, and it was able to change our perspective on some things, and we learned a little bit more about ourselves and about the games we like. And this has opened up John to playing some good games, bro. Shadow of the Colossus, 6 hours, you'll be done, and get on The Witcher 3. Like, now that you beat Ghost of Tsushima, get on it before Cyberpunk.
Yes.
Like, now you got the time.
Oh yeah.
Do it.
And get the complete.
Highly recommend.
Trust. Do it.
Trust.
Alrighty, guys. That is it for the Game of the Decade stream.